Chapter 1090. Everyone was paying attention to the Battle of the White Bird Alliance. Countless true Immortal Realm forces were secretly tracking the progress of this matter. They were waiting for the outcome of the battle between the Old Devil Three Fingers and the White Bird Alliance before interfering and benefiting from it. Most of the true Immortal Realm forces thought that the Old Devil Three Fingers and the White Bird Alliance would both suffer heavy losses. At the very least, the Old Devil Three Fingers would not win easily. After all, the White Bird Alliance had a strong foundation. However, they did not expect the Old Devil Three Fingers to slaughter the entire White Bird Alliance with his own strength. His unstoppable manner shocked the people of the world. What was even more shocking was that the dignified Rain Immortal Monarch actually returned to the Eastern Heaven on the eve of the White Bird Alliance's destruction. Her landing point even coincidentally appeared in the White Bird Star region and killed the unlucky Old Devil Three Fingers with just a raise of her hand. All the true Immortal Realm forces that used secret techniques to investigate this place were shocked. Pieces of information were instantly spread across the entire Eastern Heaven using countless methods. The Rain Immortal Monarch had returned and killed an ancient immortal venerable. She was extremely powerful. To the Eastern Heaven, the death of an ancient immortal venerable was a huge matter. It would attract the attention of countless forces and it would almost be listed as a huge storm in the Eastern Heaven. As a result, the Rain Immortal Monarch's devil prestige in the Eastern Heaven increased by a lot. When Ning Fan rode on the dark immortal cloud and traveled across the starry sky, none of the forces that he passed by along the way dared to stop him. All of them kept quiet out of fear. It was because the news had spread across the Eastern Heaven that the expert who rode on the dark cloud across the starry sky was Ning Fan. He was a terrifying existence who killed an ancient immortal venerable instantly. Ning Fan even used a rain technique to inform the Thousand-Year Sect and the Godly Void Pavilion of his return. Therefore, when Ning Fan returned to the Godly Void Pavilion on the cloud, there were already cultivators of the Godly Void Pavilion waiting for him under the lead of Little Demoness. The current Little Demoness had already adapted to the improvement of her cultivation base brought by the Child Relic. She was waiting for Ning Fan's return in the starry sky. Moreover, because of Xiang Bozi's order, the two Divine Void Emperors had no choice but to send two immortal kings to be her personal bodyguards. After all, the little demon girl's current status was different. She was the chief pavilion master of the 4 pavilions of the Godly Void Pavilion, and she was highly regarded by Xiang Bozi. Her status was even above some of the immortal kings of the Godly Void Pavilion. She was an important existence in the Godly Void Pavilion, second only to Xiang Bozi in the 2 emperors of the Godly Void Pavilion. It was not strange for there to be an immortal king protecting her. The 2 immortal kings in charge of protecting the little demon girl were a pair of Dao companions. People called them the Randang Dao companions. They were guests who had just joined the Godly Void Pavilion half a year ago. The man was a black-robed scholar with a powerful cultivation of the eternal 4 tribulations. He was extraordinarily handsome, but his expression was cold and serious. He used an unknown ancient lamp as his magic treasure and was known as the Ancient Lamp Immortal Monarch. He had not used his common name for many years. The woman was a beautiful woman in a dark green palace dress. It was said that her original body was not human, but a mutated banana that had attained Tao. She was known as the Banana Fairy, and she was in harmony with the Ancient Lamp Immortal Monarch. She was an immortal monarch who had just broken through the eternal 3 tribulations more than 1,000,000 years ago. Because this pair of Dao companions needed to protect the little Demoness from time to time, they were also waiting for Ning Fan's return here with the little Demoness. The 2 of them did not have much of an opinion about protecting the little Demoness. After all, she was the chief pavilion lord of the Godly Void Pavilion. Protecting her was the duty of any divine void realm cultivator. Having a good relationship with the little Demoness would also be beneficial for them as they had just arrived in the Godly Void Pavilion. However, they were a little dissatisfied with the fact that these 2 great immortal kings were waiting for Ning Fan's return at the border of this desolate starry sky. In their eyes, no matter how famous Ning Fan's devil reputation was, he was just an immortal venerate from the ancient times. It seemed to be a little condescending for them to welcome a mere immortal venerate with their status as immortal kings. Even if Ning Fan and the little demoness had an affair since a long time ago according to the rumors and Xiang Bozi thought highly of him, the two of them still felt a little unfair. They thought that it was beneath their dignity to do such a thing. However, they did not dare to leave the little demoness waiting for Ning Fan alone. "I say, younger sister Chief Pavilion Lord, you have just received the news from the White Bird Star region and you have already come to the border of the godly void starry sky to wait for the Rain Lord. Isn't it a little too early? You should know that the White Bird Star region is more than a few thousand star regions away from here. Even if that brother Qing of yours travels at full speed, I'm afraid it will take him quite a few days to return. After all, he is just an immortal venerate from the ancient times. His speed is limited. We might have to wait here for quite a few days." Banana Fairy complained. "Madam is right. Even if I travel at full speed, I will need at least 3 days to return. With that Rain Lord's speed, he will need at least 5 to 6 days. If there are any delays on the way, it is also possible for him to return after 10 to 15 days. The ancient lamp immortal king said with a frown. When he mentioned Ning Fan, there was a hint of contempt in his tone. "I'm sorry to trouble the two of you to wait for little Fan Fan here with me. If the two of you don't want to wait, just go back. The same goes for the others. You don't have to deliberately stay here to protect me. I will wait for him here alone. Great Emperor Ancient Chaos's situation is getting worse and worse. Now, he has even turned into a wisp of smoke. I'm very worried about what he will do when he finds out about this. I want to personally tell him this grievous news." The little demoness said with a frown. After hearing what was said, Randang and his companions sighed. They sighed because the fact that Great Emperor Ancient Chaos was slowly approaching the end of his Tao was no longer a secret in the Godly Void Pavilion. It was also not a secret in the entire Eastern Heaven, so what if he ran amok in the ancient times? So what if he was one of the 10 great immortal emperors of the Purple Do immortal domain? Once he dies, his illustrious reputation will turn into dust. Cultivators of our generation should really enjoy themselves while they can. Once Great Emperor Ancient Chaos's Tao is gone, I'm afraid Rain Lord who is the successor of Ancient Chaos will be in an even more difficult situation. The Dark Race has already sent out the war invitation. Whether your brother Qing accepts the challenge or not, it actually doesn't matter. I think it's better for the Chief Pavilion Master to draw a clear line with that Rain Lord as soon as possible. Moreover, you should also advise Senior Xiang not to treat the foundation of the Godly Void Pavilion as a child's play. I really don't understand why Senior Xiang would value a mere immortal venerate so much. Is it just because he is the successor of Ancient Chaos? He didn't hesitate to bet the entire foundation of the Godly Void Pavilion to go against that unreachable dark race. This isn't a wise move. Banana Fairy's complaint deepened. Before joining the Godly Void Pavilion, both of them did not know how resolute the Godly Void Pavilion was in supporting Ning Fan. After joining the Godly Void Pavilion, she only knew that because of Xiang Bozi's order, the entire Godly Void Pavilion would bet everything to protect Ning Fan. Even if they were to go against the dark race in public, they would not hesitate. Originally, the two of them joined the Godly Void Pavilion just to find a big tree to rely on. However, it seemed like the big tree they found was not very sturdy. They actually wanted to go against the colossal dark race. Wasn't that just courting death? It seemed like joining the Godly Void Pavilion was a wrong decision. However, once they got involved in this cause and effect, it would not be easy to get out of it. They could only brace themselves and continue on. At this moment, both of them could only hope that Xiang Bozi would change his mind and give up on going against the dark race and giving up on protecting Ning Fan. Actually, this was not only their hope. It was also the hope of countless cultivators in the Godly Void Pavilion. In the Godly Void Pavilion, from the Divine Void Emperor duo to the ordinary cultivators, most of them were not willing to take the risk of being annihilated and fight against the colossal dark race for Ning Fan alone. Unfortunately, the person who had the most authority in the Godly Void Pavilion was Xiang Bozi. Others could advise him against his decision, but they could not directly interfere. Chief Pavilion Master should really consider this matter carefully. There are more than 10,000 good men in the world. Why must Chief Pavilion Master hang himself on this tree? Moreover, this tree is going to wither soon. It is not wise to continue maintaining a relationship with him. Even though Chief Pavilion Master has already given himself to this person, to us immortal cultivators, we do not care about such minor details. As long as Chief Pavilion Master is willing, I believe that there are men with boundless prospects in the 4 pavilions who are willing to replace this person and become your Tao companion. If you continue to have a relationship with this person, once the dark race. Alright. The 2 of you don't need to persuade me anymore. Be it me or Senior Xiang, we all have our own decisions. We don't need the 2 of you to interfere with our thoughts. Especially me, I have already prepared myself to die in the hands of the dark race. If I die together with him, I will have no regrets. Of course, I also don't want you 2 to die together with him. If little Fan Fan and the dark race really reach the point where one of them is dead, I can request Senior Xiang to allow you 2 to leave the Godly Void Pavilion and seek refuge. This. The 2 of them were speechless for a while. They were a little reluctant to really leave the Godly Void Pavilion. Ever since they joined the Godly Void Pavilion, the 2 of them had obtained many benefits from Xiang Bozi. Suddenly, the sound of clouds and mist piercing through the sky came from countless starry skies. Little Demoness' face immediately lit up with joy. In the midst of the piercing sound, a white-robed silhouette was riding on the rolling dark clouds and approaching them continuously. As expected of little Fan Fan. He actually rushed back from the White Bird Star region so quickly. It has only been a few hours. Little Demoness squinted her eyes and said with a smile. Indeed. This person's speed of returning from the White Bird Star region is a little too fast. Both Randang and his Tao companion were surprised. This was obviously different from the time they had predicted. When their gazes fell upon the dark clouds below Ning Fan's feet, their expressions changed and were filled with disbelief. With Ning Fan's concealment, ordinary people might not be able to see the grade of the dark clouds at first glance. However, with their eyesight, they could easily tell that it was a Xiantian-grade escaping treasure. No wonder Ning Fan could travel across thousands of starry skies in just a few hours. A Xiantian-grade escaping treasure. How extravagant. Even an immortal emperor might not have such a grade of escaping treasure. Then, both of their gazes fell upon Ning Fan. In the beginning, they more or less looked down on Ning Fan. It was the pride of being an immortal king. However, when they met Ning Fan's gaze, their eyes actually felt unbearable pain, as if they were being pierced by flying needles. They could not look him in the eye. What a sharp gaze. It actually made them, immortal kings, unable to look him in the eye. Even some sixth tribulation immortal emperors did not have such a sharp gaze. Why does this Rain Monarch have such a sharp aura? Even if they heard that Ning Fan killed Old Devil Three Fingers with just a raise of his hand, they would not be moved. However, at this moment, their hearts were in turmoil. This Rain Immortal Monarch is definitely not as simple as the rumors say. Are you waiting for me here? Ning Fan withdrew the sharpness in his eyes and turned to the little demoness. With a smile on his face, he flew towards her and carried her onto his cloud. Then, he stroked her silky hair. His intimate action did not seem to be a taboo to the Divine Void Realm cultivators at the scene. Suddenly, there were many friendly laughter, whistles and coughs in the surroundings. It seemed like everyone was very supportive of little Demoness, the chief pavilion master, and their relationship was not bad. No matter how black-bellied the little Demoness was, she still blushed and rolled her eyes at Ning Fan. Then, she thought of the matter regarding the ancient Chaos Immortal Emperor and felt a little depressed. She did not know how to speak to Ning Fan, so she hesitated. Ning Fan understood what little Demoness wanted to say and sighed. "Don't worry about me. I already know about the matter of Master Ancient Chaos. Let's not talk about it for now. I will deal with it myself. As for these two fellow Taoists, it seems like they want to find a new companion for you. Hee, the two of you actually have the mood to meddle in the relationship of other people. Don't you think you are meddling too much?" Ning Fan's gaze turned to Randang Daoist couple. His eyes regained their sharpness. An invisible pressure turned into a gale that swept across, causing Randang Daoist couple to feel a heavy pressure once again. Before he arrived at the Godly Void Pavilion, Ning Fan's rain sense had already covered the entire place. He heard every single word about the two of them persuading little Demoness to find a new lover. Naturally, he was a little unhappy. Any man who was not at home would be unhappy when his neighbor persuaded his wife to have an affair. Of course, considering the position of the Godly Void Pavilion, he would not really do anything to them. At most, he would just give them a warning. Whether the people of the Godly Void Pavilion were willing to stand on his side to fight against the dark race was their freedom. However, it was another matter to destroy the relationship between him and little Demoness. Seeing is believing. I didn't expect Rain Lord's gaze to be so sharp. However, you should know that there are many things in this world that cannot be achieved with just momentum. Humans should have self-awareness. If you are humble, don't cling to the nobles. If you are weak, don't go head-on against the strong. When it's time to lower your head, lower your head. When it's time to let go, let go. That's how a qualified cultivator should be. I have long heard of Rain Lord's great name. I want to exchange some pointers with Rain Lord. I wonder if Rain Lord will give me face or not. The ancient lamp immortal king who was withstanding Ning Fan's heavy pressure suddenly shouted coldly. The ancient lamp in his hand immediately shone with countless rays of light, forcing Ning Fan's pressure back. As soon as the pressure disappeared, he heaved a sigh of relief inwardly. At the same time, he also became angry from embarrassment. As a four-tribulation immortal king, he actually could not withstand the gaze of an ancient immortal venerate. Thus, he wanted to exchange pointers with Ning Fan to regain some face. He concluded that Ning Fan's pressure was just a little strange and his eyes were a little sharp. In terms of methods and strength, he was certainly not a four-tribulation immortal king like him. After all, an immortal king and an immortal venerate were two completely different concepts. Moreover, he was not a third tribulation immortal king but a fourth tribulation immortal king. In the entire Eastern Heaven, who would dare to disrespect him? Even immortal emperors would politely address him as fellow Taoist when they see him. Almost at the same time when the ancient lamp immortal king issued a challenge to Ning Fan sensed some obscure spirit sense coming from the headquarters of the Godly Void Pavilion. Those spirit senses were all existences from the ancient times, including the Divine Void Emperor and the Divine Void Emperor. It seems like these people are very interested in the ancient lamp immortal king's challenge. Ning Fan also sensed that many ancient spirit senses of the Divine Void Pavilion lingered on the dark immortal cloud beneath his feet. It seemed like they were also very interested in this innate fleeing treasure. Of course, with his relationship with Xiang Bozi, Ning Fan was not worried that the people here would kill him and seize his treasure. Even with his current strength, he was not afraid. As for the challenge from the ancient lamp immortal king, he was even less afraid. However, the others did not think the same way. Husband, Rain Lord is just an ancient immortal venerable. You are a fourth tribulation immortal king. Isn't it a bit like bullying the weak? Banana Fairy said worriedly. She noticed that the little Demoness was obviously displeased after the ancient lamp immortal king said that. Both of them had just arrived at the Godly Void Pavilion not long ago. Their foundation was still shallow. It was not wise to offend the little Demoness too much. Her words echoed the thoughts of many of the divine void cultivators present. Many of them were unwilling to get involved in the dispute between Ning Fan and the dark race, but they did not hate Ning Fan. On the contrary, many of them admired Ning Fan for his rise in Eastern Heaven. Many of them cursed the shamelessness of the ancient lamp immortal king in their hearts. He actually dared to challenge an ancient immortal venerable with his fourth tribulation immortal king cultivation base. Of course, no one dared to say such words directly to avoid offending the ancient lamp immortal king. Don't worry, my wife. I know what I'm doing. I said that I'm asking for advice, and that's it. I won't hurt Rain Lord in the slightest. The ancient lamp immortal king stood with his hands clasped behind his back. The aura of a fourth tribulation immortal king swept across the place. Many of the weaker cultivators of the godly void pavilion were directly blown away by this aura. Countless of them were shocked by the strength of a fourth tribulation immortal king. Of course, under the deliberate control of the ancient lamp immortal king, no one was injured. I'm sorry. The godly void pavilion is Senior Xiang's home. I don't want to cause trouble here. I won't accept your challenge. Ning Fan's face was calm and he shook his head. However, at the next moment, an even stronger aura was released from Ning Fan's body, directly crushing the aura of the ancient lamp immortal king. What kind of aura was that filled with killing intent? What kind of profound baleful chi was that? Under that kind of baleful chi, one after another, the divine void realm cultivators felt suffocated. Their hearts were beating wildly and blood was surging in their chests. It was the biggest shock they had ever experienced in their lives. Even Ronding's Tao companion was drenched in cold sweat under that kind of aura. Her body was trembling uncontrollably. That trembling was the instinctive judgment of their body that had been tempered for a long time towards danger. They would not even tremble when facing some sixth tribulation immortal emperors. However, Ning Fan's baleful chi alone was enough to make them feel fear. It doesn't look like a fake baleful chi, it's a baleful chi that could even kill immortal emperors. Moreover, it's not just one immortal emperor. But how is this possible? How could this young man kill immortal emperors? This is absolutely impossible. Besides, I have never heard of any immortal emperors falling in Eastern Heaven. Could it be that he's an immortal emperor from the Supreme Pill sacred region? But it's also impossible. After all, he's an immortal emperor. In the history of Eastern Heaven, Sen Luo was the only one who could kill an immortal emperor as an immortal king. He was the strongest devil in Eastern Heaven. As for an immortal venerate, there had never been anyone who could kill an immortal emperor. Of course, if you still want to fight, you can come and find me another day. I will find a chance to accept your challenge. Ning Fan withdrew his aura and smiled faintly. Then, he cupped his fists at the divine void realm cultivators who were waiting for him. Riding on a dark immortal cloud, he brought little Demonis away and went straight to the divine tomb. Ronding's Tao companion whose back was already drenched in sweat was left on the spot. She looked at the direction where Ning Fan left. She was bewildered but in the end, she did not dare to find fault with him. All of the ancient cultivators of the godly void pavilion who were observing this place were stunned by Ning Fan's baleful chi. Some of them instinctively chose not to believe it. Even the divine void emperor and eighth tribulation great emperors who had been through many trials and tribulations did not believe that Ning Fan could be so heaven-defying and kill an immortal emperor. If the group of Eastern Heaven cultivators who hid in the sacred mountain returns, they would probably tell them about Ning Fan's heaven-defying achievements in the Supreme Pill sacred region. Unfortunately, those people had yet to return. Those who returned were all juniors who stayed in the outer region of the sacred region and did not dare to enter the inner region. Thus, they had no idea about the series of major events that happened in the Great Humble Tribe. Therefore, no one in Eastern Heaven knew what Ning Fan had done in the Supreme Pill sacred region. If they knew, immortal King Gu Deng would probably not dare to provoke Ning Fan even if he was given 10,000 times more courage. Has your temper become better? I thought you would beat Gu Deng up. On the dark immortal cloud, little Demonis said with surprise. In your heart, am I the kind of person who acts recklessly regardless of the situation? As long as these people don't cross my bottom line, I won't make things difficult for Senior Xiang. Ning Fan flicked little Demonis' forehead in annoyance, causing her to roll her eyes. Then, she became interested in the crow heavenly dog beside Ning Fan. What kind of dog is this? Can you give it to me to play with? You're too black-bellied. You'll play with it until it dies. I promise I won't dissect it. I'm just curious about what kind of dog it is. I've never seen it in Eastern Heaven before. The bottom line of raising a pet is dissection, huh? Later, I'll tell you about my experience in the Supreme Pill Sacred Region and the origin of this dog. Alright. Come to my room later and we'll talk through the night. Hee hee. Talking through the night, huh? I have no objections. Ning Fan went all the way to the divine tomb. Even though the movement of the dark immortal cloud was huge, the patrolling cultivators along the way did not stop him when they saw Ning Fan's arrival. Ning Fan had already become a frequent visitor of the godly void pavilion. Xiang Bozi did not sweep the ground outside the tomb. Instead, he stayed inside the tomb. At the bottom of the divine tomb, Xiang Bozi stood alone outside the ancient messy tomb palace in silence. When Ning Fan entered this place, what he saw was Xiang Bozi's lonely and bitter background. Little friend, have you already returned from the Supreme Pill Sacred Region? It seems like you've gained quite a lot from this trip. Judging from your strength, I'm afraid you can already fight against some sixth tribulation immortal emperors. Xiang Bozi turned around with a hint of surprise. Even though his eyes were blind, the information he received through his spirit sense made him deeply aware of what kind of unimaginable changes Ning Fan had undergone in just a year. Even a quasi-sage realm expert like him could not see through those changes completely. Some of Ning Fan's strength that was related to deities was even beyond his understanding. I've indeed gained quite a lot from this trip. However, the price I have to pay is also huge. I think I'll need to look for another heaven-opening stone to repair my magic treasure soon. You need another heaven-opening stone? If that's the case, I'll help you look for it and see which old man still has another heaven-opening stone. Thank you, Senior. Among the many gains I've gained during this trip, there are also some gifts that I plan to give to Senior later. Oh. You have something good for me again. You've already given this old man a lot of benefits. You should keep these things for your own use. Increasing your own strength is more important. It's fine. We'll talk about this later. I want to check on Master Wangu's condition first. My condolences, young friend. Xiang Bozi let out a bitter sigh. Presently, Great Emperor Ancient Chaos had dissipated to the point where only a wisp of smoke remained, and he couldn't even send out a trace of his consciousness. Everyone knew that Ancient Chaos did not have long to live. Xiang Bozi did not think that Ning Fan would have a way to save Ancient Chaos just by going to the Supreme Pill Sacred Region. He did not think that Ning Fan could do something that even the progenitor of the godly Void Pavilion could not do. However, he did not want to destroy Ning Fan's confidence. My condolences. Ning Fan's heart felt slightly heavy. To be honest, even if he raised the little cat to adulthood and obtained the spring water of the South Sea during this trip, he still did not have 100% confidence in prolonging Ancient Chaos life. The only thing he could do was to do his best and leave the rest to fate. He left the little Demonis and Xiang Bozi outside the Tomb Palace and entered Ancient Chaos's Tomb Palace alone. In the depths of the Tomb Palace, there was a wisp of smoke that could no longer be seen clearly. It was the smoke that Great Emperor Ancient Chaos had turned into when he was at his weakest point. Master, I'm back. I've only recognized 3 masters in my life. Master Han led me into the path of cultivation and taught me how to be a human. Master Zido helped me to recognize my true nature. As for you, you gave me the cultivation method and means to fight until now. Even though you didn't personally teach me the yin-yang locket, I don't dare to forget the inheritance of my master and the grace of you teaching me the chaotic loop art. I don't know if I can prolong your life today, but I will try my best. Ning Fan flipped his hand and took out a golden bottle that was sealed with countless layers of seals. Inside the golden bottle was a drop of 9 raccoons' soul blood which had a massive chi. Among all living things in the world, there were 5 types of 5th-grade supreme yang items that could prolong the Tao extinction. The first was the primordial clear lotus leaf, the second was the ancient Tao immortal apricot, the third was the ancient desolate mulberry tree, the fourth was the 9 raccoons' soul blood, and the fifth was the Saint Defier's chi. Ning Fan could still remember how weak little Mao was after she forced out a drop of her soul blood that day. At the same time, he owed little Mao some karma. He should make it up to her in the future. Each person could only use 1 drop of 9 raccoons' soul blood. This item could only be used to prolong one's life once. The length of one's lifespan depended on the person's physical condition and cultivation base. If a mortal consumes the 9 raccoons' soul blood before they die of old age, they could almost become immortal and live as long as the heavens. However, if they are immortal cultivators, the higher their cultivation base, the worse the effect would be. Ning Fan pondered for a while. After a long time, he activated the power of this drop of soul blood using the 9 raccoon finger art that little Mao taught him. All of a sudden, countless sparkling and translucent light threads flew out from the soul blood and went into the wisp of smoke in the tomb palace. Thump thump. Thump thump. The sound of a heartbeat could be heard from the wisp of smoke. Thump thump. Thump thump. The sound of the heartbeat became stronger and stronger. In the end, just the sound of the heartbeat alone nearly made the entire world at the bottom of the divine tomb unstable. This was a powerful heartbeat that could only be produced by the ancient chaos realm when he was at his peak. Just the sound of a heartbeat had the power to destroy heaven and earth. A speck of dust could fill the ocean and a blade of grass could cut down the sun and moon. These were the words of a peerless being like the one in front of them. The sound of the heartbeat reverberated across heaven and earth. Then, it rushed out of the divine tomb and covered the entire divine void starry sky. The sound of the heartbeat continued to spread, spreading through one galaxy after another, through layer after layer of the void, all the way to a dark starry sky. At this moment, the members of the dark race who were hiding in this starry sky felt the greatest fear they had ever felt. Every time the sound of the heartbeat became louder, the bodies of the old monsters of the dark race would tremble even more violently. Great Emperor Ancient Chaos. This is the sound of a saint realm heartbeat that only a 7 orifices ancient god could possess. Is Great Emperor Ancient Chaos going to be resurrected? This is impossible. In the past, he was personally killed by the supreme existence of the Great Blue Tribulation clan. How is it possible for him to be resurrected? If it wasn't because immortal sovereign Zido couldn't save ancient chaos, his soul wouldn't have returned to the illusory dream and lingered in the void. It's impossible for anyone in this world to resurrect him. But why? No. It's not resurrection. Ancient chaos fate hasn't changed. His future will still be the end of his Tao. However, someone has used a heaven-defying method to delay that day. Impossible. This is absolutely impossible. There are only 5 things in this world that can suppress the damage done by the supreme existence of the Tribulation clan and prolong ancient chaos life. None of those 5 things exist in the illusory dream world. This is absolutely impossible. But this heartbeat is definitely not fake. Wait, why did the heartbeat become weaker again? Could it be that someone tried to prolong ancient chaos life but failed? Ha! It's good that he failed. It's good that he failed. All of a sudden, the members of the dark race who were in chaos gradually calmed down. It was just a false alarm. Inside the tomb palace, Ning Fan's chi was weak. He had consumed a great amount of energy. He forced himself to stand upright and stared at the illusion of the tomb palace of Great Emperor Ancient Chaos with a solemn expression. no, it was no longer accurate to describe Great Emperor Ancient Chaos as an illusion of the Tomb Palace. The current Ancient Chaos was no longer an illusion after being saved by the soul blood of Jiu Li and the spring water of the South Sea. The illusory figure that was like a wisp of smoke continued to solidify. Eventually, it turned into a real body of flesh and blood. Moreover, after the body of flesh and blood was formed, the body of Great Emperor Ancient Chaos was still going through changes. In the beginning, the body of Great Emperor Ancient Chaos was a shriveled old man with white hair and a skeleton-like body. His flesh and blood had completely dried up and his skin was devoid of any luster. He sat in mid-air with his legs crossed without moving. His body was like a withered old tree. If it wasn't for his beating heart, one could almost think that he was a dead man. Then, traces of life force began to appear in his body. It was like hundreds of rivers flowing into the ocean. It was directly absorbed from heaven and earth. It was extremely domineering, ignoring the limitations of the laws of heaven and earth. Gradually, the flesh and blood of Great Emperor Ancient Chaos began to regain its functions. The wrinkles on his skin also disappeared little by little. His white hair turned black. He no longer looked like an old man who was past his prime. Instead, he looked like a middle-aged overlord. Each and every heartbeat that could shake the great Tao shocked Ning Fan. Every trace of blood essence under the flesh of Great Emperor Ancient Chaos made Ning Fan feel that his qi was boundless and invincible. Every time he breathed, it was as if he could devour the sun and moon. When his eyelids moved, it was as if a giant dragon was about to wake up. Ning Fan had an intuition. If Great Emperor Ancient Chaos opens his eyes and returns to the world, the chi force he exudes when he opens his eyes would be powerful enough to destroy the entire divine tomb. His heart was filled with excitement. He did not know how long his actions could prolong the life of Great Emperor Ancient Chaos. However, it seemed like it was still effective. However, no matter how long he waited, Great Emperor Ancient Chaos did not open his eyes. Even the heartbeat that reverberated throughout heaven and earth gradually calmed down. In the end, it even strangely stopped beating. The thumping sound between heaven and earth immediately subsided. In the end, Great Emperor Ancient Chaos just maintained his body of flesh and blood, sitting cross-legged in mid-air of the Tomb Palace. He seemed to be alive but not dead. He did not wake up nor did he undergo any further changes to his body. It seems like I still failed. Even the soul blood of Jiu Li doesn't have any effect. Ning Fan let out a long sigh. He could no longer suppress the feeling of weakness that came from treating Great Emperor Ancient Chaos. His legs became weak and he fainted on the ground. At the moment when he fainted, Great Emperor Ancient Chaos's heartbeat jumped again. Then, it calmed down again out of some kind of waiting. Now was not the time for him to wake up. He must make good use of the short life that Ning Fan had bought for him just so that he could eliminate the greatest hidden enemy of the Eastern Heaven at the critical moment. He did not care what those existences wanted to do to the Eastern Heaven. However, if they dared to plot against his successor, he would let everyone know the consequences of bullying a disciple of the Lai Yuan sect who was known for protecting his own people. Chapter 1091. When he opened his eyes again, Ning Fan was no longer in the divine tomb. Instead, he was sent to the chief pavilion lord residence of the little demoness. Due to the overdraft of his magic power, he had been unconscious for several days. After he woke up, he returned to the tomb of the god of sin to study the ancient Chaos Emperor's condition and tried many methods. Unfortunately, no matter what he did, he was unable to awaken the ancient Chaos Emperor who already possessed a body of flesh and blood. The aura of the ancient Chaos Heavenly Monarch's fleshly body was vast and boundless, but there was not the slightest trace of vitality flowing within it. It was as if he was alive yet not alive, as if he was dead yet not dead. At first, Ning Fan thought that he had made a mistake in prolonging Wan Gu's life which led to this result. However, Xiang Bozi did not think so. Xiang Bozi was a quasi-saint realm expert. He was a living fossil who had lived for countless years. His experience was not something Ning Fan could compare with. From Xiang Bozi's point of view, the ancient chaos Arch did not fail to prolong his life. Instead, after he succeeded, for some unknown reason, the ancient chaos Thearchas will took the lead and concealed all the vitality in his physical body, not letting any of it leak out. If the ancient chaos great emperor was willing, he could even open his eyes right now and return to the cultivation world with absolute strength. However, he did not do so and chose to live like a turtle. Senior, what you mean is that my master is in a state of suspended animation controlled by his own will for some reason. He could wake up at any time, but he doesn't want to wake up now. Ning Fan was surprised. It's like this. Then why does Senior think my master is unwilling to awaken? I think the ancient chaos great emperor must have his own considerations. If he wakes up now, he can stand in front of you, and the Dark Ones won't dare bully you anymore. The primordial chaos great emperor who was known to protect his own disciples did not even bother to protect them. Instead, he chose to fake his death. This was definitely not a matter of ignoring the plight of his disciples. I suspect that the ancient chaos martial monarch is planning to awaken at a crucial moment. At that moment, it might be even more serious than the dark race bullying you. Although you've extended ancient chaos great emperor's life, according to this old man's observation, ancient chaos great emperor's fate wasn't extended by much. Therefore, we can't rule out the possibility that he wanted to use his remaining lifespan for a critical moment. This speculation has its basis. Ning Fan nodded, agreeing with Xiang Bozi's speculation. He didn't know why the ancient chaos heavenly emperor decided to continue faking his death. This was the decision of great emperor ancient chaos himself and not caused by external forces. As long as Ning Fan knew about this, he would not interfere with ancient chaos's decision. He firmly believed that if he was forced into a corner by the dark race, the ancient chaos great emperor, who was faking his death, would not leave him to die. On that day, the sound of ancient chaos heartbeat when he woke up could be heard across the entire eastern heaven. Now, the news that Ning Fan had failed to prolong ancient chaos life was widely spread in the eastern heaven. However, no one knew that it was not a failure but a success, that was to say, ancient chaos's fake death had fooled everyone, including the dark race and some of the people in the dark. Little friend, you mustn't spread the news of ancient chaos great emperor's resurrection. This old man doesn't know what ancient chaos great emperor is planning to do with this matter, but if you spread this news, it might ruin ancient chaos great emperor's plan. Xiang Bozi said solemnly. Don't worry, Senior. Junior understands the gravity of the situation. Moreover, this Junior has some conjectures in my heart. The reason why my master Turtle Breath faked his death might be related to the Devil Conferral Summit. This Junior feels that the Devil Conferral Summit that had been annihilated in the long river of history might be reappearing in the world soon. My master might be trying to prevent this from happening. That's why he continued to feign his death. The Devil Conferral Summit will reappear in the world. Little friend, you're not joking, right? Is this really possible? Xiang Bozi's expression was solemn. In the eyes of the world, the Devil Conferral Summit had already been destroyed along with the ancient heavenly court and the demon manor in the great chaos of heaven and earth. However, Ning Fan's words did not seem to be baseless. Could it be that this Junior has forgotten that there was an ancient great devil from the Devil Conferral Summit who directly descended to the divine tomb with his devil cavity? That great devil is probably the only survivor of the Devil Conferral Summit. After countless years of seclusion, he finally resurfaced. However, this time, when this Junior entered the Supreme Pill's sacred region, I met another quasi-saint of the Devil Conferral Summit. Moreover, that quasi-saint even joined hands with the dark race. I don't know what they are plotting. That quasi-saint is called Baizu. What? Taoist Baizu is actually still alive today. The appearance of a great expert from the Devil Conferral Summit is just a coincidence. If there are two of them, it can't be regarded as a coincidence anymore. Could it be that the Devil Conferral Summit was not completely annihilated like the ancient heavenly court in the past? Moreover, this devil is even on the same side as the dark race. What are the Devil Conferral Summit and the dark race trying to do? Even with Xiang Bozi's quasi-saint realm mental state, he was still greatly shaken by Ning Fan's words. When he thought about how the ancient Chaos Heavenly Emperor deliberately faked his death, Xiang Bozi faintly felt that something big was about to happen in the Eastern Heaven. Then, he and Ning Fan talked about this matter for a long time. However, neither of them could determine whether this matter was really related to the Devil Conferral Summit or not. Fortunately, the matter of prolonging Wan Gu's life was barely resolved. Ning Fan did not stay in the Godly Void Pavilion for long. After giving Xiang Bozi a gift to express his gratitude, he left the Divine Tomb. Xiang Bozi had always taken care of Immortal Emperor Ancient Chaos and the Little Demoness as well as helped Ning Fan. Ning Fan would always remember them in his heart. When others treat him well, he would always repay them tenfold. Last time, he'd given the Bodhi virtue pills he obtained from annihilating the pill sect to Xiang Bozi. This time, he gave away half of the extreme yang water he had obtained in the extreme Dan sanctuary. Due to many reasons, Xiang Bozi's path to the second-rank quasi-sage stage was severed. Ning Fan planned to use many supreme treasures to pave the path that Xiang Bozi had lost. Because of Ning Fan's words, Xiang Bozi was worried about the future of the Eastern Heaven. Thus, he did not immediately go to see the gift that Ning Fan gave him. The gift was a jade bottle. There were layers of seals on the outside of the bottle. Without breaking the seals, no one would know what was inside the bottle. A long time after Ning Fan left, Xiang Bozi let out a long sigh and suppressed his worries. Then, he smiled and fiddled with the jade bottle that Ning Fan gave him. Previously, Ning Fan had said that he had gained a lot from this trip and wanted to give him some gifts. He was very curious about what kind of good things this little fellow had obtained this time to give him. Unfortunately, ever since I consumed the Bodhi virtue pill, I stored the medicinal power in my body and slowly refined it during my daily cultivation. Gradually, I gained something. The bottleneck of the second-rank quasi-sage stage that I could not see in the past also became clearer in my mind. To the current me, most of the heavenly ingredients and earthly treasures in the illusionary world are no longer useful to me. However, this item is more or less a token of appreciation from that little fellow. He actually remembered an old man like me after making a trip to the extreme pill sacred region. Hee. This token of appreciation is much more precious than any treasures. Xiang Bozi smiled and broke the layers of seals on the jade bottle. Then, he scanned the jade bottle with his spirit sense. All of a sudden, his originally calm smile turned into an uncontrollable shock. His hand trembled and nearly dropped the jade bottle on the ground. The item inside the jade bottle was not useless. It was an unimaginably large amount of extreme yang water. More than half of the jade bottle was filled with liquid extreme yang water. How could this be possible? This item was enough to pave his path to the second-rank quasi-sage stage. To any quasi-sage stage cultivator, it was a great temptation. This item was too precious. If the news of this item gets out, it would definitely make existences like Mu Song jealous. They might even turn hostile and snatch it from him. Little friend Ning, isn't your gift a little too valuable? Xiang Bozi smiled bitterly. This gift was already so precious that he could not bear to reject it. Deep in his heart, he was excited about obtaining the extreme yang water because it meant that he really had a glimmer of hope to advance to the second-rank quasi-sage stage. If he rejects the gift, he would seem hypocritical. Moreover, he faintly felt that he could not see through the current Ning Fan. This young man was getting closer and closer to the level of a supreme existence like him, step by step. The younger generation is really going to surpass us in time. Moreover, at this moment, Xiang Bozi had a great understanding about karma. Something like karma could not be avoided all the time. Since he treated Ning Fan well, Ning Fan returned the favor by giving him the hope to advance to the second-rank quasi-sage stage. As long as I persist in the cause that I believe in and not avoid it, the effect that I need will eventually come. As for the extreme yang water, Ning Fan did not plan to take it for his own use. He was still too far away from the quasi-sage stage. Thus, he did not attach much importance to this item. However, he did not like to support his enemies for no reason. As for what Taoist Mu Song said about the quasi-sage stage opening its eyes, he also threw it to the back of his mind and no longer paid attention to it. After all, he had already figured out some of his doubts about opening his eyes through his trip to the extreme pill sacred region. The thing that he once doubted was actually the karma between him and the sword ancestor. The extreme yang water that he threw into the spatial turbulence that day had been lost and recovered. Thus, the amount of extreme yang water in his body became abundant again. He did not plan to give such a good item to people like Mu Song who were just ordinary friends. If he wanted to give it to someone, he would give it to someone who was on the same level as him. In Ning Fan's heart, Xiang Bozi, who had done him a great favor, was no different from a friend who had gone through life and death with him. Thus, he did not feel any heartache when he gave him half of the extreme yang water. As for the remaining half, he planned to give it to Zhang Yu. Currently, Zhang Yu's cultivation base was at the half-step quasi-sage realm. Moreover, because he had taken over the body of a quasi-sage realm expert, he could use a small portion of the power of a quasi-sage realm expert with his physical body. Thus, he already possessed the qualifications to truly advance to the quasi-sage realm. Zhang Yu had sacrificed herself for him time and time again. Moreover, Zhang Yu had now become one of his many women. Thus, he naturally would not feel heartache when he gave something to his woman. In the past, Zhang Yu did not have enough resources to break through to the quasi-sage stage. However, now that Ning Fan was here, he would pave the way for Zhang Yu to attain the quasi-sage stage and provide her with everything she needs. After leaving the divine tomb, Ning Fan went to look for the little demoness. The two of them went to the treasury of the godly void pavilion together. Using the identity of the little demoness, Ning Fan bought quite a lot of supreme-grade Dao soil, which made the divine void emperor and divine void emperor feel heartache. A few days later, Ning Fan returned to the Qianqiu sect. On the same day that he returned to the sect, he sent a message transmitting flying sword to the slaughter palace, seemingly inquiring about something. The current Qianqiu sect was no longer a small sect. Under the management of Zhao Dyer and the other women and under the protection of 2Mo, Taiya, and the others, it continuously absorbed the subordinates of the Eastern Heaven and had already become another huge force in the Eastern Heaven. Its foundation was not any weaker than the other immortal venerate forces. There were also countless forces of the devil Dao who traveled thousands of li and abandoned their homeland to seek refuge in the Qianqiu sect. That's right. It was a pilgrimage. The current Qianqiu sect had already become the holy land of the devil Dao in the Eastern Heaven. This time, Ning Fan's return was very high profile. He did not conceal anything at all. All the disciples of the Qianqiu sect were excited because of his return. Ever since the dark races issued the declaration of war, the entire Eastern Heaven was waiting to see the miserable end of the Qianqiu sect. Only the disciples of the Qianqiu sect firmly believed that as long as their sect master returns, those shitty dark races are not worth fearing at all. They can destroy all of them. It was a kind of fanatical and blind worship of Ning Fan. It could be said that those who were willing to stay in the Qianqiu sect despite knowing that Ning Fan was being targeted by the dark races were all his loyal followers and fanatical believers. There were no exceptions. Ning Fan had risen too quickly in the Eastern Heaven. He was too domineering. From an insignificant person to the peak. From the first step of a tough battle to the second step of sweeping the enemy. All kinds of experiences made countless devil cultivators fascinated. Their blood boiled and they worshipped Ning Fan to the point of fanaticism. Even though Ning Fan's achievements in the Eastern Heaven were obviously not as good as Sun Luo's, there were already many disciples who secretly worshipped Ning Fan as the number one devil in the eastern heaven. From their point of view, putting aside strength, which devil cultivator would dare to go against a colossus like the dark races with their own strength? There was only Ning Fan. He dared to use his insignificance to shake the powerful and shake the heavens and earth without fear. It was not an exaggeration to call Ning Fan the number one devil in the eastern heaven. Devils do not have to be strong, but they must be domineering. If one's heart is full of scruples, why not change to another cultivation path and become a devil lord? Moreover, there were many dazzling halos above Ning Fan's head. It made all the rational cultivators who were not fanatical about Ning Fan think highly of him. The disciple of the Slaughter Palace, the inheritor of ancient chaos and the quasi-saint of the godly void pavilion are good friends despite the difference in age. When these halos were added to Ning Fan's head, it made him shine brighter than many of the great sovereigns in the eastern heaven. Welcome, Sect Master. This is great. Sect Master has finally returned from the Supreme Pill Sacred Region. We are willing to go with Sect Master to fight against the dark races. We will die on the battlefield and follow you in life and death. I would rather die standing than waste this life of the Devil Dao. It was the tsunami of cheers that spread across the entire cultivation planet when Ning Fan returned. That kind of greeting that was filled with fanatical worship infected Crow Heavenly Dog who was standing beside Ning Fan. It howled at the sky and joined in the cheers. Ning Fan's silent heart was filled with warmth at this moment. This journey to seek Tao from the East Paradise had always made him feel like he was wandering around. However, at this moment, the Thousand-Year Sect brought him peace of mind. It made him feel like he wanted to protect the Thousand-Year Sect. This was his 1,000 Years Sect. This was his foundation. This was the home that he built with his own hands. After returning to the 1,000 Years Sect, Ning Fan kept in touch with the Slaughter Palace every day. At the same time, he also kept in touch with Xiang Bozi of the Godly Void Pavilion. Zhang Yu, Ouyang Muan and Old Wu were all released. All of them went into seclusion in the 1,000 Years Sect to heal their injuries, cultivate or be busy with other matters. What was worth mentioning was that the sect master of the medicine sect, Wei Wuji, had directly moved the entire cultivation planet of the medicine sect to a place not far away from the 1,000 Years Sect. After that, the sect had officially merged with the 1,000 Years Sect and became its subsidiary force. In this way, even if Ouyang Muan comes out from her seclusion, she would cultivate near the 1,000 Years Sect in the future. She would not be too far away from Ning Fan. With the support of the medicine sect's endless supply of pills, the development of the 1,000 Years Sect would undoubtedly be faster. In the blink of an eye, several months had passed. During these months, the dark races received the news of Ning Fan's return and sent the second letter of challenge to the 1,000 Years Sect. This time, the letter of challenge only had one simple sentence. The successor of ancient chaos is a scoundrel who shows off. Since you don't dare to fight, you might as well surrender. It was as if it was mocking Ning Fan for not immediately going to the dark continent designated by the dark races to accept their challenge after returning to the eastern heaven. As for the second letter of challenge, Ning Fan just sneered and tore it into pieces. He would definitely accept the challenge from the dark races. The reason why he did not go now was not because he was afraid but because he had more important things to do. He had no choice but to postpone the battle with the dark races. The matter of ancient chaos was barely resolved. However, there were still other things that had yet to be resolved. Before that, Ning Fan did not have the time to fight the dark races to the death. On the main peak of the 1,000 Years Sect, a medicinal garden with dense spiritual qi had unknowingly appeared. For a few months, Ning Fan stayed in the medicinal garden without taking a single step out. This medicinal garden was not built by Ning Fan alone. Instead, it was a single entity. If one takes a closer look, they would realize that the medicinal garden itself was actually a low-grade innate magical treasure. Shen Nong's 100 Herbs Garden. It was a medicinal garden that Ning Fan bought from the heaven-reaching sect through the ancient country trading formation. It was specially used to plant the soul seeds of the sovereign slayer. Of course, it could also plant some rare plants and spiritual herbs. Its growth speed was 100 times faster than the natural world. Because this treasure was not a processed product, it was sold at a high price. Even with the discount from the VIP card, it still cost Ning Fan more than 100 gold ingots. However, to Ning Fan, who had plundered the entire Supreme Pill sacred region, 100 gold ingots was not worth mentioning. 3 gold mines and 5 silver mines were kept by Ning Fan in his flame incense realm. The flame incense realm's people would continuously mine ores from them. When the ores have accumulated to a certain amount, he would personally set up a refining formation to purify them into heavenly Tao gold and silver. Under the large-scale mining, the ores mined every day were enough to be refined into 5 to 6 taels of heavenly Tao gold and nearly 100 taels of heavenly Tao silver. The income was extremely great. If it is accumulated over time, one could imagine how great the profit would be. The flame incense realm's people were changed by Ning Fan. They no longer believed in their former master but Ning Fan and only Ning Fan. As Ning Fan used both kindness and authority, they gradually gained loyalty. Among the flame incense realm's people, some of them were seized from the immortal emperors and immortal kings. Some of them were the descendants of the immortal emperor's disciples that Ning Fan had captured. With these people mining the gold and silver mines day and night, Ning Fan could save himself a lot of trouble. The Tao soil in Shenlong's 100 herb garden was all supreme-grade Tao soil. A small number of them were bought from the Godly Void Pavilion while most of them were bought from the heaven-reaching sect. Supreme-grade Tao soil was extremely expensive in the heaven-reaching sect. 1 square meter of soil would cost 1 to 2 gold ingots. The supreme-grade Tao soil that covered the entire Shenlong's 100 herb garden had cost Ning Fan more than 400 gold ingots. In the 100 herb garden, there was a gurgling stream that watered the plants on both sides. If one were to take a closer look, one would realize that the water of the stream was actually Tao spring of extremely high quality. It was a special stream that was formed under the law of the 100 herb garden. Ning Fan planted the 4 emperors' Arhat pines and the 7 wonders tree in the 100 herb garden. He also planted some precious spiritual herbs that he obtained from the Supreme Pill sacred region in the garden. One had to admit that the 100 herb garden was not a loss. After transplanting them, the pine needle swords of the 4 emperors' Arhat pines grew longer. The withered branches and leaves of the 7 wonders tree also recovered their vitality bit by bit. It was all thanks to the 100 herb garden. As for the central area of the 100 herb garden where the spiritual qi was the densest, Ning Fan did not plant any miscellaneous items. He only planted Tu Huang's soul seed. For several months in a row, Ning Fan had been taking care of his soul seed in the 100 herb garden. His expression was solemn as he carefully guarded it. When a tender sprout finally broke through the soil, Ning Fan's solemn expression finally relaxed. He laughed out loud. This tiny tender sprout emitted the qi of Tu Huang's soul. As for the remnant soul of Tu Huang, it was increasing bit by bit along with the growth of the tender sprout. It was recovering bit by bit. At this moment, Ning Fan finally completely believed in Kai Wei's words. As long as he takes good care of this tender sprout, there will be a day when this tender sprout will grow strong and strong. There will be a day when Tu Huang's remnant soul will grow completely. There will be a day when he can meet that woman called Ji Qingling again. As long as there is a day when they can meet again, be it attacking the sacred mountain or invading the underworld territory, none of them will be useless efforts. Instead, they will be meaningful actions that will pay off. A few days later, old Wu Ba sent Ning Fan another piece of good news which made his mood even better. With the many rare repair materials that Ning Fan gave him, old Wu Ba only spent a few months to repair all the damaged innate magic treasures that Ning Fan lost during the battle in the underworld territory. Even the bottle that was flooded with water was repaired. Even the divine smelting cauldron was repaired. Even the ocean-defying sword was repaired by old Wu Ba, who was good at repairing magic treasures. As a result, among all of Ning Fan's magic treasures, only the god-exterminating shield was still damaged. It was temporarily lacking the heaven-splitting stone to repair it. It was not something that old Wu Ba could repair. At the same time, a message from the Slaughter Palace was sent to Ning Fan through a special magic treasure. It was a message from Yao Qingyun, who had been keeping in touch with Ning Fan for the past few months. Ning Fan, I have already done what you asked me to do. The Northern Dipper Blood Realm will be opened again just for you. Do you really have a way to save Tu Huang? The price of opening the Northern Dipper Blood Realm this time is extremely huge. There are many complaints in the palace. If you can't do it, I will try my best to plead for you with the Nether Sea Immortal King. No matter what, I will block the punishment for you. After receiving the message, Ning Fan smiled. The series of good news had put him in a good mood. Now that he replied to Yao Qingyun's message, he no longer suppressed his true feelings. Instead, he teased her. Elder Qingyun, don't worry. I have 90% confidence in prolonging Senior Tu Huang's life. It has been a long time since we last met. Elder Qingyun, have you ever felt lonely? Do you need me to comfort you? Not long after, Yao Qingyun's message came again. That voice transmission was filled with embarrassment and anger. Shut up. There's someone beside me. Don't talk nonsense. I don't need your comfort. In the Slaughter Palace, Yao Qingyun's face turned red with embarrassment. The surrounding elders of the Slaughter Palace were staring at her with strange eyes. This time, the relationship between Yao Qingyun and Ning Fan was completely exposed in front of everyone in the Slaughter Palace. No one would have expected that Elder Qingyun, who had always been indifferent to men, would actually have such an ambiguous relationship with the dignified Rain Lord. Speaking of which, the Rain Immortal Monarch had too many beauties. Shao Qianxi of the Godly Void Pavilion, Ouyang Yuan of the Medicine Sect, and now, Yao Qingyun, the elder of the main palace. Each of them was a genius among women. How enviable. Wait. I won't allow you to open the Northern Dipper Blood Boundary again. What ability does the Rain Monarch have to save the Palace Master? I don't believe it. We must stop him from acting recklessly. Suddenly, an elderly man in blood-red robes with a ghost mask broke into the palace from outside. He carried a giant sword on his back and his eyes were filled with arrogance. The moment he broke into the palace, everyone including the immortal king of the Nether Sea, who was a quasi-emperor realm expert, changed their expressions. In the end, everyone stood up and cupped their fists respectfully towards the elderly man in blood-red robes. Even the immortal king of the Nether Sea was no exception. Subordinate Ming Hai greets the Vice Palace Master. Wasn't the Vice Palace Master in seclusion to break through the 9-5 Great Tribulation of the Immortal Emperor realm? Why did you suddenly come out? Ming Hai asked with a frown while enduring the heavy aura of the elderly man in blood-red robes. Humph. If I still don't come out, I'm afraid you little fellows would have already pierced the heavens. Pass down my order. Close the Northern Dipper Blood Boundary again. As for Ning Fan, strip him of his identity as a disciple of the Slaughter Palace. If he dares to step into the Blood Sea Star region, he must be expelled from the Slaughter Palace. The elderly man in blood-red robes gave an order that left no room for refusal. The expressions of all the higher-ups of the Slaughter Palace changed drastically when they heard the order. They could not accept it. Ning Fan was not aware of the changes in the Slaughter Palace. After learning that the Slaughter Palace was already prepared to save Sha Di, Ning Fan kept the Farmer God's 100-herb garden into the Profoundine world. After giving some instructions to Zhang Yu and the others, he crossed the starry sky and headed to the Blood Sea Star region where the Slaughter Palace was located. Along with him were Crow Tiango, Zhu Er and Old Wu, who had yet to fully recover from his injuries. Black Devil and the puppet He Xiaoyan were still living in the Profoundine world. Wherever Ning Fan went, they would follow him. However, They would not stay in the outside world usually. Crow Tiango had just acknowledged Ning Fan as his master. He was a little clingy towards Ning Fan. He felt unfamiliar with the entire eastern heaven and was even more afraid of being cursed by some saints. Thus, he did not dare to leave Ning Fan's side. This made Ning Fan extremely speechless. The curse of the saints in the Supreme Pill sacred region seemed to only attack the cultivators of the despicable clan. As for Crow Tiango, who did not have the ability to transform, he was not part of the curse. This was also the reason why in the history of the Supreme Pill sacred region, there were always corpse devils and pill devils who could ignore the curse and safely escape from the region. Crow Tiango was purely worrying for nothing. The reason why Zhu followed Ning Fan was because the saints' will in the moonlight treasure box had already been used up. That treasure box was just an empty shell that could no longer display any abilities. To Ning Fan, it had lost its value. This was the huge price he had to pay for the battle in the underworld. After losing the value of the time reversal, Zhu simply flew out of the treasure box and stayed outside to guard Ning Fan. He was afraid that he would be killed by the cruel and ruthless Ning Fan like a piece of trash after losing his value. One should know that he had offended Ning Fan before. Who knew if Ning Fan would take revenge on him in the future? Fortunately, even if he was just a spiritual tool, he still had strength that was comparable to an ancient immortal venerate. If he had the opportunity, he could recover to a higher level. Moreover, because he was very good at using illusory attacks, he thought of staying by Ning Fan's side in the outside world to make some contributions and protect himself. Due to these reasons, Ning Fan eventually had two lackeys following him, Crow Tiango and Zhu. One of them was a dog and the other was a pig. Then, Old Wu, who claimed to be Ning Fan's first loyal servant, had the greatest sense of crisis in his life. He strongly requested to travel with Ning Fan. He had a premonition that this pig and dog wanted to threaten his position as Lord Turtle. They wanted to compete with him for his favor. No. I can't slowly go into seclusion to heal my injuries anymore. I must keep a close eye on this malefic star. I can't let this pig and dog steal my position. I'm the first loyal servant of this malefic star. With this thought in mind, Old Wu treated Zhu and Crow Tiango with hostility along the way. He was even more respectful and enthusiastic towards Ning Fan. It was as if he was willing to climb a mountain of swords and dive into a sea of flames for Ning Fan at any time. I see. I should have known this would happen. Master already has a shameless existence who is good at flattering him. No wonder my flattery couldn't move Master at all. Humph. This old turtle is not simple. He's definitely the strongest opponent I've ever met in my life. He's countless times more difficult to deal with than a monkey, a kappa, or a lame horse. And this Tiango. He's also a great enemy. I can't underestimate him just because his cultivation base hasn't entered the eternal era. Zhu expression was also not friendly when he looked at Old Wu and Crow Tiango. He felt a deep sense of crisis. Woof woof woof. Crow Tiango was also vigilant. He had used his life to prove his loyalty to Ning Fan. He didn't expect that there would be two other servants competing for his favor. This gradually made him feel a sense of crisis. He could no longer return to the hometown of the Fire Spirit Tower. He could only follow Ning Fan until he dies. He must not let anyone take his position away from him. Therefore, the atmosphere between the two of them was filled with a strong smell of gunpowder throughout the journey. This gave Ning Fan a headache. He somewhat regretted bringing these three peerless servants along with him. Turtle, pig and dog. Hee. Is he going to imitate the stories of the Buddhist scriptures in the mortal world and go to the Western paradise to obtain Buddhist scriptures? Speaking of which, why did all the servants he received recently change in style? All of them were messy, well, only Gu of the Tai Su lightning diagram was still considered normal. Otherwise, there would be another brainless sparrow in his team. With the full speed of the black immortal cloud, Ning Fan arrived at the Blood Sea Star region from the Thousand Years sect in just a few hours. As soon as he arrived at the border of the Blood Sea Star region, Ning Fan frowned. At the moment he flew into the Blood Sea Star region, a group of ghost-faced cultivators stopped him. This is the order of the Vice Palace Lord. The sinner, Ning Fan, will be stripped of his identity as a disciple of the Slaughter Palace. He will be expelled from the Slaughter Palace and will never step into the Blood Sea Star region ever again. If he dares to disobey the order, he will be killed without mercy. The group of ghost-faced cultivators said helplessly. They were unwilling to accept the order to expel Ning Fan. They wanted Ning Fan to try to save Lord Sha Di. However, they could not disobey the absolute order of the Vice Palace Lord. Inwardly, they could only apologize to Ning Fan. We've offended. Senior Rain Lord, damn you. What did you say? Say it again. Try telling my master that you'll be killed without mercy again. I can't tolerate it. I'm going to kill all of you to wash away my master's humiliation. Without waiting for Ning Fan, who was frowning to express his opinion, Zhu Er had already taken the lead and stood up. His pig-like face was filled with anger and he pretended to be angry at the group of cultivators of the Slaughter Palace. Old Wu immediately had the urge to curse out loud. Damn it! This damned fat pig had stolen his lines. He was too careless. Chapter 1092. Old Wu was secretly regretting that his limelight had been stolen by Ning Fan. Suddenly, he heard Ning Fan reprimanding Zhu Er with a dissatisfied tone. I didn't say I was going to kill all the disciples of the Slaughter Temple. Don't talk nonsense. Back off. Master, I'll take my leave. Zhu Er, who was about to roll up his sleeves and fight, was shocked. He thought that he had made a mistake. He didn't expect that he would misunderstand his master's meaning. From his point of view, Ning Fan was a devil lord who could not tolerate even the slightest bit of anger. It was absolutely impossible for him to tolerate the rude words of a few juniors. However, the truth was that Ning Fan did not recklessly unleash his killing intent just because the disciple of the Slaughter Palace had spoken rudely to him. How unimaginable. A madman who even dared to kill the third step well spirit of the Well of Worries was actually so tolerant towards a few juniors. Sigh, it was hard to guess what he was thinking. Zhu Er cursed inwardly, while Brother Wu and Crow Tengu took pleasure in Zhu Er's misfortune, secretly laughing at his flattery. Ning Fan was too lazy to care about the thoughts of the three idiots. He was more concerned about the reason why he was expelled by the disciples of the Slaughter Palace. From the words of these disciples, the one who ordered him to be expelled was not the Dark Sea Great Elder, but the Deputy Hall Master of the Slaughter Hall. Strange, why did the Slaughter Deputy Hall Master stop him from saving Sha Di? The Slaughter Palace's functions were divided according to each generation's Slaughter Emperor as the Palace Master. Under the Palace Master, there was a Deputy Palace Master. Under the Deputy Palace Master was the Great Elder, who was in charge of the other elders. Under the Great Elder were the Pavilion Masters, Deacons, and Disciples. When Ning Fan was in the Slaughter Palace, he had also heard about the existence of a Vice Palace Lord of the Slaughter Palace. He seemed to be an old monster who was going to advance to the Sovereign Realm soon. However, this person rarely moved about in the Eastern Heaven. His devil reputation seemed to be even less famous than the Great Elder of the Nether Sea. As the Deputy Hall Master, he did not need to manage any secular affairs. His only task was to cultivate in seclusion. It was said that he would only appear when the Slaughter Hall was in danger. At this moment, the Slaughter Hall was clearly not in danger of being exterminated. Yet, this Deputy Hall Master had appeared. Logically speaking, Ning Fan coming to save Sha Di out of goodwill should be greatly beneficial to the revival of the Slaughter Palace. Why would the Vice Palace Hall Master stop him from doing so? Could it be that this person didn't want the Sha Di to be saved? Did he want to fight for power with Sha Di, the Temple Master? Or maybe he just didn't want the slaughter hall to get too involved with him. After all, he was clearly determined to fight the Dark Tribe to the death. All of a sudden, countless guesses emerged in Ning Fan's mind, but he was unable to verify them. "Reign Immortal Lord, please don't make things difficult for us. We are only following orders. Reign Immortal Lord, please leave the Blood Sea Galaxy as soon as possible." Zhu Er's ferocious tone had really frightened the few disciples of the Slaughter Palace. They were at most at the Crossing Truth realm. How would they dare to be presumptuous in front of Ning Fan? Now that they were frightened, their tone became much more respectful. "I'm afraid I can't leave. I never give up halfway. According to what I know, the only one who can expel an elder of the Slaughter Hall is the Hall Master himself. The Vice Highness ordered me to be expelled, but did you obtain the warrant of the Palace Master? If you don't have the token, I can't approve of this matter." Ning Fan's expression was calm. With a flip of his hand, he took out an elder token of the Slaughter Palace. This token was not the one he had handed over to the Slaughter Palace. Instead, it was the spoils of war he obtained from killing Elder Fei He in the ruins of the Six Desires Immortal King. The rules of the Slaughter Palace were very bloody. If a disciple could kill an elder and seize the token, he would be able to replace the elder and become an elder. As for an elder, even the Vice Highness could not simply give the order to expel him. This is the elder token that Elder Fei He lost. As expected, it is in the hands of the Reign Immortal Lord. The few disciples of the Slaughter Palace were shocked. In the past, Fei He and Yao Qingyun brought Ning Fan to the Six Desires Immortal Cave to search for treasures. In the end, Fei He died. As Ning Fan's reputation became more and more well known, the Slaughter Palace had long guessed that Fei He's death was closely related to Ning Fan. Today, this matter was finally confirmed. "Since the Reign Immortal Lord has the Elder Token, you are a member of the group of elders of the Slaughter Palace. Of course, we won't dare to stop you anymore. No. We shouldn't call you the Reign Immortal Lord anymore. We should address you as Elder Ning. Since Elder Ning has the Elder Token, the Vice Highness naturally can't expel you. We will let Elder Ning pass right now." The few disciples of the Slaughter Palace removed the blocking formation at the border of the starry sky and made way for Ning Fan. Then, they stood upright on both sides of the starry sky and cupped their fists to salute Ning Fan. The respect they showed when they saluted Ning Fan again was far greater than what they showed in the beginning. Obviously, the identity of an elder of the Slaughter Palace carried considerable weight in the hearts of these disciples of the Slaughter Palace. Ning Fan nodded his head. It would be best if this matter could be resolved peacefully. Just as he was about to continue moving forward on the cloud, a cold voice suddenly resounded from the other end of the starry sky. "Nonsense. This elder token is fake. My Slaughter Palace refuses to acknowledge this young man's elder status. What bullshit, Reign Immortal Monarch. If you know what's good for you, get out of the Blood Sea Star region at once. Otherwise, don't blame me for being merciless." The cold voice kept getting closer and closer. The invisible sound wave suddenly turned into a gigantic flaming fist and smashed towards Wu Xianyun's direction. The wind generated by the fist directly shattered some of the abandoned stars in the surroundings. It even sent a few disciples of the Slaughter Palace flying away. The wind generated by the fist carried an unimaginably scorching heat. The temperature of the cold starry sky suddenly rose. It was a punch at the level of an immortal king. This time, Old Wu had seized the opportunity to show off. Without waiting for Ning Fan to attack, he had already leaped forward. With a flick of his sleeve, billowing black wind rushed towards the flaming fist light. Speaking of which, it was strange. That fist light clearly had the strength of an immortal king's attack. However, it became unstable after being blown by the black wind. Every time it landed on Wu Xianyun, it would collapse a little. When it landed on Wu Xianyun, it was already reduced to an illusory fist force. With a sneeze from Old Wu, it was directly shattered and turned into nothingness. Eh? At the other end of the starry sky, a soft exclamation of surprise was heard. Obviously, the person did not understand how old Wu, a mere immortal venerable with a single first tribulation immortal venerable from the ancient times, could defend against his immortal king's attack so easily. Not long after that, a gigantic bird that was engulfed in raging flames flew towards them from afar in the starry sky. Wherever it passed, the hollow space would be set ablaze. Dragging a long trail of flames behind it, it flew across an immeasurable distance in an instant. That gigantic bird was not a demon. Instead, it was the incarnation of an immortal king realm old monster. As soon as the flames fell, a burly man with a ghastly face wearing flaming armor walked out from the flames. He raised his finger and drew a line across the starry sky. Immediately, a crack appeared in the starry sky and flames rushed out from it. In an instant, the entire starry sky within 1,000,000 li was sealed by this person's flames, surrounding Ning Fan and the others in the center of the sea of flames. The person who came was none other than one of the immortal king realm elders of the Slaughter Palace. His cultivation base was at the third tribulation realm. As for his name, Ning Fan vaguely remembered that this person was called Immortal King Punishment Flame. He was also a cultivator who cultivated in seclusion. In the past, Ning Fan's cultivation base was still low. He had only seen him once in the crowd from afar. Now, he was on equal footing with him. As soon as Immortal King Punishment Flame appeared, a few disciples of the Slaughter Palace immediately came to greet him. Elder Punishment Flame, please don't attack. This is a misunderstanding. Everyone in the world knows that the Elder Token of the Slaughter Palace is condensed from the slaughter intent of the first-generation killing emperor. It can't be forged at all. Elder Ning's Elder Token has been verified by us. It is indeed authentic. This matter. Humph. Get lost. Did I ask you a question? Immortal King Punishment Flame's eyes narrowed. A vast aura force spread out from him, instantly causing the few disciples of the Slaughter Palace to spurt out blood. They kept retreating and no longer dared to speak carelessly. They also did not dare to approach Immortal King Punishment Flame rashly. Rumor had it that this Immortal King was unreasonable and unreasonable. Today, the few disciples of the Slaughter Palace had finally witnessed it for themselves. Ning Fan frowned slightly. He wholeheartedly wanted to avoid a conflict with the Slaughter Palace. However, judging from the arrogant attitude of this Immortal King Punishment Flame, it was obvious that he did not intend to reason with him. The Elder Token is fake. Hee. He's really lying through his teeth, Reign Immortal Monarch. Hee. What a great title. I don't know how much of your title is fake. However, this servant of yours really does have some capabilities. There aren't many First Tribulation Immortal Venerables in the entire Eastern Heaven who can withstand a single punch from me. You're not bad. You don't look familiar. What's your name? Immortal King Punishment Flame looked at Ning Fan as if he was nothing. However, he showed a slightly fearful expression towards Old Wu who had withstood his punch. He did not know about Old Wu's notoriety. If he did, he probably would not dare to talk to Old Wu so calmly. From Xing Yan's point of view, it was already polite for an immortal king like him to ask about Old Wu's name. Unfortunately, Old Wu did not care about Xing Yan at all. He just kept digging his nose and secretly wiped it on Zhu Er's clothes. Thus, Zhu Er was enraged and began to wrestle with Old Wu. Immortal King Punishment Flame, who was completely ignored by Old Wu, was instantly enraged. He snorted coldly and no longer paid attention to Old Wu. His eyes under the ghost mask turned to Ning Fan and said coldly, "I've verified that your Elder Token is fake. You can get lost now. You don't have the right to enter this starry sky." His tone was extremely disdainful. It was obvious that he did not put Ning Fan in his eyes at all. Xing Yan could not be blamed for that. He could only blame Ning Fan for his young bone age and his rapid rise in the Eastern Heaven. Compared to those old monsters who were tens of millions or tens of millions of years old, Ning Fan's bone age was just like a baby who was still wet behind the ears. Besides, Immortal King Punishment Flame was a loyal follower of the Vice Palace Master. He was also in seclusion all year round and rarely went out in the Eastern Heaven. Therefore, he did not hear much about Ning Fan's great reputation and he did not believe it either. Reign Immortal Monarch? He just has a good master who is a great cultivator from the ancient times. Unfortunately, that good master is going to die soon. Once ancient chaos dies, this little brat will be nothing. Ning Fan's frown deepened. After staying silent for a while, he said. Elder Xing Yan, if you think that my elder token is fake, could my innate ghost mask also be fake? According to what I know, if there's a need to make a decision during a special situation, the young emperor of the Slaughter Palace seems to have a greater say than a mere vice palace master. If I'm the young emperor of the Slaughter Palace, a mere vice palace master won't be able to expel me. Ning Fan waved his right hand and the innate ghost mask gradually appeared. His black hair instantly turned silver. The Slaughter Palace respected the ghost mask. As soon as the innate ghost mask appeared, everyone at the scene could feel the aura of a superior being from Ning Fan's body. Even Xing Yan was no exception. Immortal King Punishment Flame could feel the ghost mask that he was wearing trembling. It was fear towards the young emperor's ghost mask. He had a bad feeling. The Vice Palace Master's plan was to make the Slaughter Palace lose its young emperor. Why is there still a young emperor in the Slaughter Palace? If that's the case, wouldn't all of the Vice Palace Master's plans be useless? On the other hand, the disciples of the Slaughter Palace at the side were extremely excited. Young Emperor Ghost Mask. It's true. Ha! It's really the young Emperor Ghost Mask. Since when did our Slaughter Palace have a young emperor? No wonder the Great Elder thinks so highly of the Reign Immortal Monarch. I didn't expect the Reign Immortal Monarch to have another identity. He's the young emperor of our palace. If the person who holds the innate ghost mask has the cultivation base of an immortal venerable, he will be the true young emperor. We, the disciples of the Slaughter Palace, greet the young emperor. The eyes of the few disciples under the ghost mask were filled with passion. The person who knelt in the starry sky was Ning Fan. Even if they were facing the Great Elder, they would not kneel. However, if it was the young emperor, the future 8th slaying emperor, then it was an exception. There's no mistake. It was a ghost mask that contained the will of the first generation. It was a ghost mask that belonged solely to the Slaughter Palace. It was the innate ghost mask, the symbol of the young emperor of the Slaughter Palace. What was the thing that worried the cultivators of the Slaughter Palace the most? It was not that the 7th slaying emperor was nearing the end of his lifespan. It was because there was no 8th slaying emperor to succeed him after his death. 6 million years ago, Elder Fu Linglong, who had the highest chance of becoming the young emperor, died in an unknown place, causing the Slaughter Palace's lineage to be cut off. Countless cultivators of the Slaughter Palace were worried about their future. According to the tradition of the Slaughter Palace, every cultivator of the Slaughter Palace had the duty to hunt down young emperors to speed up their growth. However, this did not mean that the disciples of the Slaughter Palace did not respect the young emperors. On the contrary, the weight of a young emperor was countless times greater than the Vice Palace Master or the Great Elder. Humph! You bunch of idiots! This young man's innate ghost mask is also fake. Can't you see it? This young man forged the ghost mask of a young emperor. His crime is punishable by death. Those who kneel to him are also guilty of the same crime. I will execute him. Immortal King Xing Yan's eyes flashed with ferocity. He waved his hand and countless flames instantly burned the few disciples of the Slaughter Palace who were kneeling to Ning Fan into ashes. Then, he waved his hand again. The sea of flames that sealed the starry sky instantly turned into thousands of fire dragons, rushing towards the black immortal cloud. He actually disregarded Ning Fan's identity as a young emperor and wanted to kill him on the spot. If Ning Fan was not a young emperor, Xing Yan might have spared his life. However, since Ning Fan was a young emperor, any carelessness could ruin the Vice Palace Master's plan. He would never allow Ning Fan to live. Ning Fan's eyes were filled with coldness. Even though the Slaughter Palace did not forbid the killing of their own disciples, immortal King Xing Yan's action of confusing the truth and killing a few disciples of the Slaughter Palace who were defenseless still aroused Ning Fan's dissatisfaction. Moreover, Xing Yan actually tried to kill him. This matter had already crossed the bottom line of his tolerance. It made him feel a little uneasy. The sound of the wind in the Blood Sea Star region carried a kind of sorrow that ordinary people could not detect. It was like a whimper or a mournful melody. It turned into a heavenly sound and lingered in the starry sky. That kind of wind was called the sound of burial. It would only appear in the place where peerless experts had fallen. Ordinary people could not hear the sound of burial. It had nothing to do with one's cultivation base. What they needed was an extreme understanding of the Tao of divination. Moreover, not many grandmasters of the Tao of divination could hear the sound of burial. In the four heavens, there were only 2 or 3 people who could hear the sound of burial with their cultivation base of the Tao of divination. Even though Ning Fan had received guidance from Phoenix Emperor Chongming, he was just a beginner in the Tao of divination. With just his cultivation base of the Tao of divination, it was not enough for him to hear a profound heavenly sound like the sound of burial. However, he had another identity. He was a degenerate who had cultivated the divine spirit body that could communicate with all living things. He could hear the sound of all living things. As such, even if his cultivation base of the Tao of divination was not strong enough, he could still hear the sorrowful sound of burial that filled the starry sky. According to the ancient records, even if an 8th tribulation immortal emperor had fallen, they would rarely leave a sound of burial in the world. Why would there be a sound of burial in the current Blood Sea Star region? Could it be that something happened to Sha Di? Could it be? Ning Fan's heart tightened. The more the other party tried to stop him, the more he felt that it was possible. I don't know why you and the Vice Palace Lord behind you kept trying to stop Ning Fan from saving people. If we can't reach the Slaughter Palace peacefully, I don't mind marching on the path of blood. Ning Fan raised his hand and the wind and fire fan appeared in his hand. He channeled his magic power into the fan like a tidal wave. In an instant, he fanned the thousands of fire dragons for tens of times. In just a few breaths, the thousands of fire dragons that immortal King Xing Yan was proud of and the boundless sea of fire that filled the starry sky were all turned into ashes by Ning Fan. Using fire to fight fire, the result was a complete victory for the wind and fire fan. It's actually an innate magic treasure. How is this possible? Xing Yan was shocked. He turned around and fled after transforming into his eternal true body. It was not because he was afraid of Ning Fan but because he was afraid of Ning Fan's innate magic treasure. He wanted to go back and find a few more accomplices to besiege Ning Fan. That way, his chances of winning would be higher. However, would Ning Fan let him go? The answer was, of course, no. With a single point of his finger, Ning Fan froze the giant bird that immortal King Xing Yan had transformed into in the starry sky. After that, Ning Fan waved his wind and fire cattail fan a few hundred times consecutively, turning immortal King Xing Yan's ancient true body into ashes. Only his primordial spirit managed to escape from the ashes. However, Ning Fan was just deliberately holding back. Xing Yan was finally afraid. His entire primordial spirit was trembling. If he knew that Ning Fan was so strong, he certainly would not have rashly used his killing intent against Ning Fan. No matter what, he would have planned everything first before killing Ning Fan. Previously, he did not believe that Ning Fan had the strength to instantly kill an eternal immortal venerable like what the rumor said. However, the reality was that Ning Fan's strength was much higher than what the rumor said. The evaluation of the people of the world towards him was actually too low. Was this the strength that an eternal immortal venerable could possess during the Dharma-ending era? Burning a third tribulation immortal king's eternal true body into ashes in just a single move. Even an eternal immortal venerable would not be able to do so. However, an eternal immortal venerable appeared in the Dharma-ending era. It was completely against the rules. After Sun Luo, another peerless devil lord was born in the eastern heaven. If this young man continues to grow, he would certainly become one of the leading figures in the Dharma-ending cultivation world. Great escape technique of myriad fire essence. Xing Yan was terrified. His primordial spirit exploded into millions of sparks and fled in all directions in the starry sky. Ning Fan did not even look at those sparks that were fleeing. His left eye flashed with a demonic light. At this moment, even ordinary illusion techniques became clear to him. He kept his wind fire fan and punched the hollow space beside him with his iron fist. Instantly, the hollow space cracked and he grabbed a primordial spirit that was covered in blood from the crack. It was none other than Xing Yan, immortal king. Xing Yan's primordial spirit was tightly bound by the lightning prison rope. It did not even give him a chance to self-detonate. It's impossible. You actually saw through my illusion technique and you even have a second innate magic treasure. Let me go. You can't kill me. Do you know who I am? If you kill me, the Calamity Clan will certainly not let you go. I'm the son of an elder of the Calamity Clan. You can't kill me. You can't. Xing Yan's state of mind was in chaos and he roared. At this moment, his life and death were no longer under his control. He really spoke without thinking and even blurted out his biggest secret. Calamity Clan. Ning Fan was startled. Then, his eyes flashed with cold light. As far as he knew, the Calamity Clan was a secret clan in the southern heaven immortal world. They seemed to be the archenemy of the Slaughter Palace. The reason why the current Sha Di was struggling to survive was to prevent the invasion of the Calamity Clan. This Xing Yan is actually a spy that the Calamity Clan planted in the Slaughter Palace. Could it be that the reason why the so-called Slaughter Vice Palace forbade me from saving Sha Di is also because of the Calamity Clan? Seeing Ning Fan's expression change as soon as he heard that he was a member of the Calamity Clan, Xing Yan heaved a sigh of relief inwardly. He thought that Ning Fan had probably been intimidated by the name of the Calamity Clan. Thinking about it, it made sense. A dark race was already enough to give him a hard time. If there's another member of the Calamity Clan, given how arrogant this young man was, he would probably have some scruples. To be honest, little friend, the 7th generation Sha Di has already been secretly eliminated by our Calamity Clan. The reason why the Vice Palace Lord stopped you from saving Sha Di is not because he was afraid that you will save him. After all, it's already impossible for him to do so. What he was afraid of is that you will open the Northern Dipper Blood Realm in advance and let the disciples of the Slaughter Palace know about Sha Di's death. That would affect our great plan of slowly obtaining the sacred heavenly desolate sword. How about this? As long as you let me go, I can put in a good word for you in front of the Calamity Clan. If the Calamity Clan attacks the Slaughter Palace one day and slaughters all the cultivators of this palace, I can guarantee that you won't die. Sha Di is really dead. Ning Fan's heart was filled with bitterness. The reason why he risked his life to enter the Supreme Pill sacred region and let the Black Devil clan become an adult was just to extend the lives of Ancient Chaos and Sha Di. However, in the end, even though he managed to bring back the blood of an adult 9 raccoon, Ancient Chaos Great Emperor was still in a deep slumber for some unknown reason. As for Sha Di, he had already fallen and he did not get to save him. Judging from immortal King Xing Yan's words, Sha Di did not die because his life force was exhausted. Instead, he died because of the secret scheme of the Calamity Clan. Xing Yan and the other spies of the Calamity Clan had been lurking in the Slaughter Palace for so many years. They were deeply trusted by Sha Di. If these spies were to assassinate Shah Di, the possibility of Shah Di, who was already on the verge of death, would indeed be quite high. Being vigilant all day and night, it would be difficult to guard against a thief in one's own house. If little friend is willing to lend a hand to my Calamity clan and annihilate the Slaughter Palace, I am willing to ask the patriarch of my clan for a reward on your behalf. The Slaughter Palace is just a gathering place for a group of remnants of the Northern Dipper Alliance. Ants can't achieve great things. Even ancient Chaos Great Emperor is just an undead spirit who is struggling at death's door. Only my Calamity clan can be little friend's indestructible support. I can give little friend another promise. If little friend joins my Calamity clan, the Eastern Heaven Dark clan will certainly not treat little friend as an enemy anymore. The reputation of the patriarch of my clan, Huado, is extremely resounding in the secret clan. Oh right, the patriarch of my clan is also very interested in ancient Chaos Great Emperor. If little friend can obtain a trace of ancient Chaos Great Emperor's soul and offer it to my patriarch for research. Xing Yan still wanted to say something, but he was interrupted by Ning Fan's cold laughter. Heh! Do you want me, Ning Fan, to be ungrateful and betray my master and ancestors? If there are enough benefits, so what if I am ungrateful and betray my master and ancestors? Xing Yan said disapprovingly. Benefits? Heh. Do you know what I am thinking right now? Hee hee. How could I possibly know what little friend is thinking? I was thinking, if the Shah Di was really killed by your clan, then even if I killed my clan, it would be hard for me to avenge the Shah Di. The Shah Di was killed by his companions. How sorrowful he must have been before he died. You. What nonsense are you talking about? That's the Calamity clan. The Calamity clan. Ah. What are you doing? Stop. Stop right now. What he got in response was Ning Fan's cold and merciless soul search, which turned him into an idiot. After that, Ning Fan ruthlessly crushed Xing Yan's primordial spirit. He did not even refine the 10,000 spirit blood. It was as if he could not vent the hatred in his heart if he did not kill this person. From Xing Yan's memories, Ning Fan saw the scenes where the spies of the Calamity clan plotted to murder Shah Di. He saw the look of disbelief and anger in Shah Di's eyes before he died. The burial song that filled the starry sky was really the burial song left behind by the Slayer. However, because of the Calamity race's series of schemes, Shah Di's life token had not been broken yet. No one knew that Shah Di, who had been guarding the Big Dipper blood domain alone, had already passed away. Shah Di was dead. He did not die while guarding the Big Dipper blood world but was poisoned by his comrade. His death was not worth it, not worth it. The Shah Di is dead. What's the use of taking the Black Demon's soul blood? Ning Fan slowly closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were cold and merciless. He was the 8th young emperor recognized by the 7th Slayer. It was his duty to avenge the 7th Slayer emperor. Hiss. Elder Xing Yan had been killed by the Rain Immortal Lord. That's a 3 Tribulation Immortal King. Innate Ghost Mask. Why does the Rain Lord have the young emperor's ghost mask? What's happening here? Should we attack the Rain Lord? Hurry up and send a message to the main hall. More and more disciples of the Slaughter Palace were attracted by the sky-piercing baleful qi that erupted from the death of immortal King Xing Yan. Ning Fan did not want to be entangled with these ordinary disciples. At this moment, he only wanted to do one thing, and that was to find the culprit of this incident and perform a blood sacrifice in front of the grave of the Slayer Emperor. Ignoring the obstruction of the ordinary disciples, Ning Fan rode the dark immortal cloud and flew towards the Slaughter Star at full speed. Unfortunately, before he could go far, another 2 immortal venerables tore open the starry sky and walked out of it. Without saying a word, they attacked Ning Fan to kill him. They had already received the news of Xing Yan's death and also found out Ning Fan's identity as the young emperor. How could they let a mere young emperor ruin their plan when they were about to succeed? Just two immortal venerables. How dare you block my way? You're courting death. Ning Fan's eyes flashed with mercilessness. He fanned his wind and fire fan and instantly burned the physical bodies of the two immortal venerables into ashes. In the starry sky, the sky was filled with flames. Ning Fan accurately located the location of the two primordial spirits. Then, he pinned them down and skillfully knocked out their primordial spirits, capturing them alive. That's right. This time, Ning Fan decided to capture them alive. Just now, he directly killed Xing Yan out of anger. Now that he had calmed down a little, he decided to capture these traitors and bring them to the tomb of Sha Di to be killed. According to immortal King Xing Yan's memories, these two people were also one of the accomplices who plotted against Sha Di. He must not let them go. The slaughter star arrived in the blink of an eye. Just as Ning Fan approached it, a sigh finally resounded from the slaughter star. Ning Fan, even though you're the young emperor of my palace, it's indeed a little too much for you to injure 3 immortal venerables in a row. You should stop now. A white-haired young man soared into the sky from the slaughter star with a pained expression. He stood in the starry sky and blocked Ning Fan's path. He was the immortal king of the Nether Sea, the great elder of the slaughter palace. Even though he already knew that Ning Fan was a domineering person, he did not expect that Ning Fan would disregard Sha Di's kindness and start a massacre in the slaughter palace. Did he misjudge Ning Fan? This young man has really disappointed me. Ning Fan smiled. That smile actually contained a kind of indescribable sorrow. Sha Di was already dead, but his disciples did not know about his death. Moreover, some of them even stopped him and questioned him in order to protect his accomplices. The 7th Sha Di is already dead. Today, I'm going to clean up the sect for him. I hope Great Elder won't stop me. Ning Fan, what nonsense are you spouting? What do you mean by the 7th Sha Di is already dead? You can't simply say such disgraceful words. Ming Hai was shocked. At the same time, an unbridled laughter resounded from the slaughter star. Then, the starry sky shook. An elderly man in blood-red robes who carried a giant sword on his back slowly appeared in the starry sky. Behind him were 10 to 20 of his loyal subordinates and the eternal puppet of Sha Di. Ming Hai, you're really an idiot. Even this little kid knows that the 7th Sha Di is already dead. How could you still be kept in the dark by me? Ha ha ha. Is there anyone more stupid than you in this world? Amidst the laughter, the elderly man patted his storage pouch and took out a bloody head. It was the head of Sha Di. His eyes were still filled with unwillingness and anger. Before dealing with the sacred slaughterer Tian Huang, I originally wanted to let all of you live for a few more years. Unfortunately, my plan has to be brought forward because of the intervention of this little kid. If that's the case, I, as the deputy palace master of the Slaughter clan and the 19th young emperor of the Calamity clan, declare. From today onwards, the Slaughter palace will be erased from the eastern heaven. Those who follow me will be spared from death. Those who go against me will be killed without mercy. As soon as the elderly man finished his words, his loyal subordinates and puppets immediately spread out in all directions. They killed anyone they saw. In an instant, many disciples of the Slaughter Palace were killed because they were caught off guard. Ming Hai's eyes widened in anger. If he still didn't know what had happened at this moment, then his cultivation base in this life would really be in vain. Xue Changkong. The palace master treated you like his own son. How could you have the heart to betray him? I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you. You. In the Eastern Heaven immortal world, who can stop me without an immortal emperor? Xue Changkong harumphed disdainfully. He kept Sha Di's head and rushed towards Ming Hai. He didn't even use his giant sword. Just a few divine abilities were enough to injure Ming Hai. The difference in strength was obvious. As the strongest expert of the Slaughter Palace, Ming Hai was no match for Xue Changkong. There was almost no one below the immortal emperor realm who could fight against Xue Changkong. The slaughter palace was in danger. Xue Changkong laughed out loud. Just as he was about to chase after the Nether Sea, a figure in white suddenly appeared in front of him. The figure pressed down with his hand and directly destroyed the divine arts that he had thrown at the Nether Sea. He was unscathed after taking the attack of a quasi-emperor with his physical body. Your opponent is me. Boom! Without any hesitation, Ning Fan's first punch was the unreasonable ancient Devil Mountain breaking strike. It was filled with anger and killing intent. It directly broke Xue Changkong's defense and sent him flying a great distance away. Along the way, he crashed into countless abandoned stars. Xue Changkong, who was initially arrogant, struggled to stabilize his body. Only then did he spurt out a mouthful of blood which contained pieces of his internal organs. It was imaginable how much damage Ning Fan's punch had done to him. He was already lightly injured. Xue Changkong's eyes widened in disbelief at the scene before him. A dignified quasi-emperor like him was actually injured by an immortal venerable with just a punch. A mere immortal venerable of 10,000 ancient times could actually injure me with just a punch. How is this possible? The plan that was originally in the bag finally had a bad feeling because of Ning Fan's appearance. No wonder the clan said that the slaughter palace's luck had yet to run out and it wasn't suitable for them to act for the time being, so that's why. Everyone had guessed wrongly. The luck of the slaughter palace didn't fall on the 7th generation. Instead, it fell on this ignorant brat. As long as this ignorant brat doesn't die, the luck of the slaughter palace would continue. Junior, don't be arrogant. Do you think you can be arrogant just because you gained the upper hand with a single punch? I've fought against a real 6th tribulation immortal emperor for 3 days and 3 nights. How can you be my opponent? I've killed a 6th tribulation immortal emperor before. Nonsense. You only know how to talk fast. That's not your true ability. Fine, I'll kill you with the ancient imperial sword right now. Otherwise, you'll think that a dignified quasi-emperor is only at this level. Xue Changkong harumphed coldly and untied the giant sword on his back. As soon as the seal was removed, a world-shaking sword pressure instantly spread across the starry sky. This sword was a genuine innate magic treasure. All the disciples of the slaughter palace who felt the sword pressure were shocked. Because everyone knew how decisive the existence of an innate magic treasure was to the victory of those below the immortal emperor realm. No matter how strong Rain Lord's fist was, could it be stronger than an innate magic treasure? Chapter 1093. Seeing that everyone was suppressed by the ancient imperial sword, Xue Changkong burst into laughter. His confidence skyrocketed and the gloominess in his heart that was injured by Ning Fan's punch was swept away. The body of the ancient imperial sword was engraved with mysterious patterns. It was wrinkled and undulating like the bark of a tree. Its immortal chi was overwhelming. As the giant sword was swung, the shadows of countless ancient buildings appeared in the starry sky. Those ancient buildings emitted a supreme aura force that made people want to worship it uncontrollably. It was extremely strange. Many old monsters of the slaughter palace who recognized the sword had a drastic change in expression. They cried out involuntarily. This sword is actually forged from the ruins of the ancient heavenly court's 5 buildings and 12 pavilions. It contains real immortal spiritual power. I'm afraid it's much more powerful than ordinary innate magical treasures. Xue Changkong swung the giant sword and a massive sword chi rushed out like a white dragon. The dazzling sword light made everyone unable to open their eyes. The sword light was too fast. It seemed to have reached the end of the starry sky in an instant and was about to fall on Ning Fan. Countless people's eyes were focused on the ancient imperial sword. They were shocked by the unparalleled aura force of the sword. Xue Changkong's cultivation base was already stronger than the immortal King Nether Sea. He could be considered as one of the top experts among the quasi-emperors. Now that he used the innate magical treasure sword to attack, it was almost as powerful as an immortal emperor's attack. No one thought that Ning Fan could withstand the attack of the sword. Not even the immortal King Nether Sea was an exception. Ming Hai's expression was as heavy as steel as if he was facing a formidable enemy. Just as he was about to help Ning Fan from the side, Ning Fan raised his hand and stopped him. "Great Elder, quickly go and quell the rebellion in the palace to prevent the disciples from suffering too many losses. Leave this person to me." Ning Fan's tone carried the calmness of someone who had been through many trials and tribulations. To ordinary cultivators of the Eastern Heaven, a quasi-emperor was already a supreme existence. However, to him, a quasi-emperor was no longer a formidable enemy. As he spoke, Ning Fan raised his other hand to the sky and took out a black kasaya. As soon as the monastic robe appeared, the surroundings were immediately swept up by demonic winds. As for the monastic robe, it grew in size amidst the demonic winds, completely enveloping the attack that Xue Changkong had unleashed with all his might. Then, it wrapped itself around the monastic robe, completely sealing off the attack and preventing it from leaking out. This item was none other than the Black Mountain Bear ancestral kasaya that Ning Fan rarely used. He had seized it from Great Emperor Tian Du. It was a magic treasure that could be used for both offense and defense. It could be worn as a protective armor or as a magic treasure that could control the heavens and earth. Countless people were so shocked that they could not close their mouths. Ning Fan had easily blocked Xue Changkong's attack. This kid actually has a connate magic treasure as well. Moreover, it seems as if he didn't expend much energy to receive Xue Changkong's attack. The Nether Sea Immortal Monarch was shocked. Then, his expression changed to one of guilt and admiration. His expression was extremely complicated. After witnessing Ning Fan's strength, the Nether Sea Immortal Monarch knew that Ning Fan was the only one on his side who could fight Xue Changkong on equal footing. Only the young emperor could protect the Slaughter Palace and the descendants of the Northern Dipper sect. If that's the case, I'll have to trouble the young emperor to hold him back for a while. After I kill the rest of the rebels, I'll come and help the young emperor to kill the traitor Xue Changkong to avenge the palace lord. Go. Kill all the rebels this time. Leave their primordial spirits behind. I want to offer them as a blood sacrifice. Understood. Addressing himself as a subordinate meant that the Nether Sea Immortal Monarch had truly acknowledged Ning Fan's identity as the eighth young emperor. Only a few years had passed. The young man who was still at the first step in the past had now become the only hope of the Slaughter Palace. While speaking, Ning Fan was still unhurriedly dealing with Xue Changkong's attacks. On the surface, he seemed to be able to deal with Xue Changkong's attacks with ease. However, every time he blocked Xue Changkong's attack, he would need to consume a large amount of magic power. It was not an easy task to forcefully block his opponent's attacks. It was not difficult to dodge the attacks as it would save a lot of magic power. However, if he only focused on dodging and allowed the attacks to spread in all directions, many of the other disciples of the Slaughter Palace would be killed by the aftershocks. At this moment, he kept his ghost face and dark immortal cloud. Only his white robes were left floating in the starry sky. His expression was like a piece of ice that would never melt. The God-exterminating shield could not be used for the time being. In that case, it would not be easy to kill a quasi-emperor. As Ning Fan's eyes sharpened, rain suddenly fell from the starry sky. The raindrops formed a path of stars. Ning Fan stepped on the path of rain, approaching Xue Changkong step by step. Every step he took was filled with unimaginable baleful qi and devil intent. Xue Changkong's heart could not help but race. His body instinctively felt uneasy when he saw Ning Fan approaching him. He swung his giant sword even faster, slashing at Ning Fan one after another. However, all of his attacks were blocked by the ancestral bear kasaya. What made him uneasy was that Ning Fan also had an innate magical treasure which allowed him to block his ancient K sword slash with ease. Another thing was that the baleful qi on Ning Fan's body was extremely heavy. It was something that he had never seen before in his life. One should know that even the notorious immortal emperors might not necessarily have such a level of baleful qi. In order to strengthen the baleful aura to such a degree, just killing people was not enough. One had to kill immortal emperors. I've killed a 6th tribulation immortal emperor before. Xue Changkong suddenly recalled Ning Fan's words and his heart shuddered. Previously, Xue Changkong had only treated those words as a joke, and he had not taken them seriously. However, at this moment, he began to take them seriously. His body's instincts told him that Ning Fan was very likely a dangerous being who was comparable to an ancient immortal venerable. Perhaps Ning Fan had really killed an immortal emperor before. Otherwise, why would he feel a chill when facing Ning Fan's baleful qi? However, his rationality told him that Ning Fan was just an ancient immortal venerate. Killing an immortal emperor was just nonsense. What was an immortal emperor? An immortal emperor was a peak existence during the Age of Chaos. It was the lifelong pursuit of countless second-step immortal cultivators. It was an unattainable dream. How could an immortal venerable kill an immortal emperor? A bunch of nonsense. That's right. That's right. This baleful qi must have been faked using an extremely mysterious method. That must be it. What a cunning child. You actually faked your baleful qi to scare me. Do you think I will believe you? Do you think I will be afraid of you because of this? However, I didn't expect you to also have an innate magic treasure. No wonder even Xing Yan was defeated by you. I shouldn't underestimate you. Unfortunately, you don't know that there are differences in strength between low-grade innate magic treasures. Your magic treasure might be able to block my ordinary slashes, but if I use the true power of this sword, killing you will be as easy as flipping my palm. Do you know that the ancestors of all cultivators have a common name called immortal spirit? Xue Changkong sneered. He used a sword technique that was personally taught to him by the clan leader of the Disaster Clan. He activated the immortal spirit power contained in the ancient imperial sword bit by bit. His entire body was enshrouded in immortal qi, making him look like an ancient immortal with an indomitable aura. First came the divine spirit, then came the immortal spirit. Once the path to immortality is opened, the incense will continue. This was a sentence recorded in the top-secret dossier of the Disaster Clan. Xue Changkong did not understand its specific meaning. He only vaguely knew that there was a kind of power in this world called immortal spirit power. It was the ultimate power that only ancient immortal spirits could possess. It was a power that cultivators could not grasp. It was even harder to fathom than the power of heaven and earth and the power of the great Tao. The ancient imperial sword shot out countless immortal qi. As the immortal qi trembled, the starry sky drizzle that was attracted by Ning Fan became motionless. The giant sword then pointed at Ning Fan. Billions of tiny light rays flew out from the body of the sword. Those were sword shadows that were as small as the hair of a cow. They were condensed from the legendary immortal spirit power. Billions of tiny light rays fell like a rainstorm of pear blossoms, sweeping across the starry sky. When they broke through the air, they let out ear-piercing cries of thousands of birds and shot towards Ning Fan. Some of the disciples of the Slaughter Palace did not manage to dodge in time and were struck by some of the tiny immortal spirit swords. Their bodies instantly turned into stone and died. The way they died was extremely strange. It was as if their blood essence and cultivation base had been completely devoured by the tiny immortal spirit swords. Ning Fan's eyes narrowed. He tried to use his ancestral bear Kasaya to collect those tiny immortal spirit swords. However, he only managed to collect 30% of them. The remaining 70% of them broke through the defense of the Kasaya and approached him with unstoppable momentum. Ning Fan's expression turned solemn. He took out a shabby palm leaf fan and activated his ability. He fanned the fan a few hundred times at the rainstorm of sword needles. Another 30% of the sword needles were burned into ashes by the blazing flames. However, there were still 40% of them that did not lose their momentum. They rushed to within 1,000 zhang of him, giving him a sense of danger. Currently, he had yet to repair the god-exterminating shield. If these sword needles come close to his body, he would more or less be injured. Of course, it would not be fatal. After all, the strength of a derelict divine spirit body was undeniable. Besides, he had a feeling that the immortal spirit power of these tiny immortal spirit swords was somewhat similar to the divine spirit power that was gushing out of his body. However, it was somewhat different. What a powerful ancient imperial sword. Even 2 innate magical treasures could not withstand its full power. But what if I have 3 innate magical treasures? Under Shui Chankong's shocked gaze, Ning Fan took out the 3rd innate magical treasure, the divine lightning mirror. This treasure was the most powerful one among all of Ning Fan's low-grade innate magical treasures. When the mirror shone on the remaining 40% of the tiny immortal spirit swords, all of them were destroyed by the lightning and the attack completely dissipated. Ning Fan changed his hand seal again. Another divine lightning as thick as a bowl shot out from the mirror. It instantly reached 3 chi above Shui Chankong's head. Shui Chankong was shocked. He instinctively used the ancient imperial sword to block it. Even though he managed to block most of the lightning power, his ghost face was still destroyed, revealing his true appearance. He was an old man with white hair and a youthful complexion. His hair bun was also loosened. His disheveled appearance made him look a little disheveled. His expression became even more gloomy. This young man actually has 3 innate magical treasures. Moreover, this ancient realm magical treasure doesn't seem to be any weaker than the ancient imperial sword. Where did this young man get so many magical treasures? If you say that they were given to him by ancient chaos, I definitely won't believe it. Shui Chankong was not the only one who knew about this. Everyone in the world knew that ancient chaos had died with only a trace of an illusion left. He did not keep any of his supreme treasures with him when he was alive. How could he possibly give them to Ning Fan? However, Shui Chankong would definitely not believe that Ning Fan collected these magic treasures with his own strength and not given to him by anyone. This young man has 3 innate magical treasures. It won't be easy for me to kill him. I don't need to hold back anymore. Shui Chankong suddenly opened his mouth and spat out a ray of golden light. It was actually a golden nematode. That nematode lived in his body and cultivated together with his life. It was extremely powerful. He was not the only one. Most of the cultivators of the Calamity clan would raise nematodes in their bodies. Most of the nematodes were different. This golden nematode had 2 heads on both sides. One of them was female while the other was male. As soon as it appeared, it grew in the wind and turned into a gigantic beast that occupied the starry sky. Its mouth was shaped like a suction cup. When it breathed, it could even suck the great Tao into its stomach. Its cultivation base was at the 5 tribulations immortal realm. However, the strangeness of this nematode gave Ning Fan a feeling that it was much harder to deal with compared to ordinary 5 tribulation immortal kings. You can't defeat me alone, so you asked for help, huh? Ning Fan said expressionlessly. Shui Chankong's face turned red. He felt extremely embarrassed. His cultivation base was much higher than Ning Fan's. It was indeed a little embarrassing for him to need help to defeat Ning Fan. Losing face once or 10 times is still the same. Since he had already summoned the nematode in his body, it wouldn't matter if he summons other worms too. Today, he must kill Ning Fan no matter what to accomplish his plan. Shui Chankong spat out hundreds of parasites from his body. It seemed like parasitic spiritual worms were his favorite. These parasites were at least at the thought fragmentation realm. There were more than 10 of them at the immortal venerable realm and 2 more at the immortal king realm. As Shui Chankong gave an order, all of the parasites attacked Ning Fan. As for himself, he activated the immortal spiritual power of the ancient imperial sword again and slashed out billions of tiny immortal spiritual swords at Ning Fan. Ning Fan patted his storage pouch and a few treasures flew out. His expression did not change at all. He was not afraid at all even though he was surrounded by hundreds of parasites. In the past, when he fought against unparalleled existences, the strategy he chose was to use the God-exterminating shield to defend himself. He wanted to be undefeatable and then look for an opportunity to win. Now that the God-exterminating shield was damaged, he changed his strategy. He directly used his many innate magical treasures to launch a fierce attack. Even if he summoned 4 to 5 quasi-emperor realm parasites, Ning Fan was confident that he could kill all of them with his fierce attacks, let alone the fact that the parasites that Xue Changkong summoned were only at the 5 Tribulation Immortal King realm. As soon as the divine lightning mirror shone with lightning, the billions of tiny immortal spiritual swords were all shattered by the lightning. The unique feature of this mirror was that everything that it could see was included in the list of attacks. Naturally, it would not miss anything. As the poisonous smoke from the 5 venom banner rose, the gigantic parasites turned into pus and blood within the poisonous smoke. The wind fire fan burned everywhere while the 5 Tribulation Immortal King realm parasites died. As soon as the lightning prison rope tied them up, the 5 Tribulation Immortal King realm parasite with the highest cultivation base was already tied up and turned into ashes by the 5 Tribulation Immortal King realm. The Black Mountain Bear ancestral Kasaya wrapped itself around countless parasites. Then, it shook it and countless insect bones and ashes fell to the ground. Those who entered it died. Xue Changkong coughed out blood continuously. He could not believe the scene in front of him. Ning Fan only used the divine lightning mirror to completely suppress his ancient imperial sword. Then, he used even more innate magical treasures and killed all the parasites that he had painstakingly cultivated for many years at lightning speed. In order to cultivate those parasites to such a high cultivation base, one must cultivate together with their lives. When the host dies, the parasites die. When the parasites die, the host will be injured. Every time a parasite was killed, he would be injured because of the connection between their minds. The higher the cultivation base of the parasite that died, the greater the damage he would suffer. Ning Fan only used around 10 breaths to kill all of his parasites. The price for the death of the parasites was that Xue Changkong's body was already severely injured due to the backlash. The price he had to pay was definitely huge. How is this possible? How is this possible? Ning Fan only used around 10 breaths to kill all of his spiritual worms. Ning Fan actually used 6 innate magical treasures at the same time. How could the Doomsday Immortal Venerable have so many treasures? This is impossible. Absolutely impossible. One had to know that the proudest thing in Xue Changkong's life was that he already possessed an innate magical treasure before he truly stepped into the Immortal Emperor realm. Even for a clan as strong as the Calamity Clan, not everyone was qualified to obtain innate magical treasures. He was not the only young emperor of the Calamity Clan. In fact, he was just a young emperor who was ranked 19th among the Calamity Clan. Besides, he was not an immortal emperor. Originally, he did not have the qualifications to be bestowed innate magical treasures by the clan. Thus, he gave up his comfortable life in the clan and risked his life to accept the mission. Then, he lurked in the slaughter palace and wreaked havoc in secret. As a result, he was rewarded with the ancient imperial sword. The clan leader had even promised in front of countless clan members that if he, Xue Changkong, could complete the mission and secretly seize the sacred heavenly desolate sword, he would be promoted from the 19th young emperor to the 4th young emperor on the day he returns. He would also be rewarded with a second innate magical treasure. Resources were limited in the age of chaos. How could there be so many materials to forge innate magical treasures? Even the immortal emperors would rarely have 2 innate magical treasures. To him, 2 innate magical treasures was just an unattainable dream. However, what did Ning Fan do to have 6 innate magical treasures? This matter had shaken his pride as the young emperor of the Calamity clan a little. He felt that it was unfair and his sense of superiority had completely vanished. Ning Fan naturally would not let go of the moment when Xue Changkong was distracted. "You're distracted." Ning Fan's voice traveled along the path of rain in the starry sky and reached Xue Changkong's ears. However, Ning Fan's figure had completely vanished from the starry sky without him noticing. Xue Changkong's heart skipped a beat. To his horror, he realized that the starry sky around him was dead silent. Not only could he not find Ning Fan's figure, but he also could not see any of the disciples of the Slaughter Palace. The starry sky was empty. There was not a single person or star in sight. Not even the main star of the Slaughter Star could be seen. He was the only one left in the lonely starry sky. His body was slowly melting into a puddle of blood for some unknown reason, giving off a putrid smell, not good. "It's an illusion technique. Release." Xue Changkong circulated the magic power in his body and his eyes regained their clarity. The illusory scenery around him disappeared. He was still standing on the starry sky battlefield. The only difference was that his entire body was being tied up like a dumpling by the lightning prison rope. His magic power began to be sealed. He wanted to struggle but he could not break free at all. Then, the terrifying poisonous smoke of the 24 poisonous banners blew over. The lightning fire of the 5 lightning annihilation barrier shot out from the barrier. The lightning light of the divine lightning mirror shot out. The smoke of the wind fire fan blew over. The attacks of the innate magic treasures landed on Xue Changkong who was defenseless, causing his injuries to worsen. Xue Changkong was a dignified quasi-emperor. Even if he was not an expert in body refinement, his physical body was certainly not weak. Unfortunately, when his magic power was sealed, it was impossible for him to withstand the joint attacks of the many innate magic treasures. Very soon, he was on the verge of death. His breathing was weak and he was only breathing out. All the disciples of the Slaughter Palace were speechless. No one expected that the battle between Ning Fan and Xue Changkong would be so one-sided. Ning Fan was too strong. He actually had 6 innate magic treasures in his hands. Those who were not immortal emperors were not Ning Fan's match at all. They could only be suppressed and bullied by Ning Fan. "I don't accept this. I don't accept this. You are just relying on having a lot of magic treasures. If it's a fair battle, you are definitely not my match." Xue Changkong's voice was like a gossamer. He gritted his teeth and said unwillingly. He did not beg for mercy but only sneered. Unfortunately, an enemy was an enemy. No matter how tough he was, he would not let him go. "The Tao is unfair. The fairness that you mentioned never existed in the past and it will never exist in the future." With a flash of red light, Ning Fan appeared in front of Xue Changkong and stopped all the innate experts' attacks. He formed a series of hand seals with both of his hands and the heaven-seizing imprint was instantly formed. Then, he pressed it on the top of Xue Changkong's head, causing his dying physical body to explode into blood mist. Then, he extracted Xue Changkong's unconscious primordial spirit from the blood mist. He was not in a hurry to kill it. Instead, he sealed it and imprisoned it. Ning Fan's plan was to bring all the traitors' primordial spirits to the tomb of Sha Di as a blood sacrifice. Since he had won the battle, he kept all the innate magic treasures. Then, his eyes swept across the surroundings indifferently. He realized that the other traitors in the surroundings had already been killed by the immortal king of the Nether Sea and the others. There were no longer any battles in the starry sky. There were only chaotic Tao laws that were intertwining with one another, telling the story of the rebellion that had happened in this place. Only Ning Fan could hear the sound of burial, telling the story of Shadi's death. Wherever Ning Fan's gaze landed, all the disciples of the Slaughter Palace were either filled with fanaticism or reverence, not daring to look at Ning Fan directly. Of course, there were also many people who had mixed feelings of joy and sorrow on their faces. The fact that Ning Fan was a young emperor had already spread far and wide. It was a tragedy for them to lose the 7th Sha Di. It was a joy for them to obtain the 8th young emperor. A generation had passed away and a new one had arrived. Their 8th young emperor was very famous and strong. By following him, they could try to fight for a future for the Slaughter Palace. Master, Little 8 has done a good deed. Look, these are the primordial spirits of the traitors that Little 8 captured alive. There are 3 of them. It was Old Wu's smiling face that looked like he was presenting a treasure. I've captured 4 primordial spirits. Hee hee. My credit is even greater. It was Zhu Er who was competing with Old Wu to claim credit. Woof woof woof. Crow Heavenly Dog also spat out 2 unconscious primordial spirits from his stomach and offered them to Ning Fan. The other traitors were basically killed directly. These were the only ones who had their primordial spirits captured. Old Wu, Zhu Er and Crow Heavenly Dog began to fight in front of Ning Fan because of a disagreement. It was a very funny scene, but Ning Fan just could not bring himself to laugh. He did not care about the 3 of them. He just sighed and kept the primordial spirits captured by his 3 servants. Then, he silently flew to the side of the immortal king of the Nether Sea and said, I want to go to the Northern Dipper Blood World and open it up, yes. It was the immortal king of the Nether Sea and all the surviving cultivators of the Slaughter Palace who answered respectfully. So what if they won? So what if they defended the Slaughter Palace? Sha Di was still dead in the end. When Ning Fan reopened the Northern Dipper Blood World and entered the Inner Star Palace. When Ning Fan found the headless corpse of Sha Di, he had no choice but to accept the reality. It was a mutilated corpse that did not fall even after death. Its head was cut off and its primordial spirit had died inside its body after exhausting its remaining strength. If it wasn't for the fact that Sha Di's remaining life force was too little, he certainly would not have died even if Shui Changkong and the other traitors ambushed him. The surroundings were filled with the ancient puppets that had perished together with Sha Di. When Sha Di died, these puppets would also perish. Sha Di did not have much time left in the first place. How sad it was for a hero to be assassinated by a traitor who was already past his prime. It was precisely because Ning Fan was worried about Sha Di's remaining life force that he had not used up all of Sha Di's jade slips until today. He was afraid that he would consume Sha Di's remaining life force. In the future, he might not have the chance to use it anymore. Senior, I'm back, you once gave me 2,000 years to grow. But now, it seems like I don't have that much time to slowly take over the Slaughter Palace. However, there's one thing that I can't figure out. You once said that the day you die will be the day the enemies invade us. You should have been dead for a long time. If it wasn't because I insisted on opening the Northern Dipper Blood World to save you, I'm afraid that the news of your death would still be concealed. I don't understand why the Calamity Clan did not immediately invade us after your death. Instead, they allowed Shui Changkong and the other scoundrels to continue lurking in the Slaughter Palace and act in the dark. Why is that? I know that there's actually a peerless divine sword in the Slaughter Palace. It's called the Northern Dipper Mortal Calamity, Sacred Desolate Heavenly Slaughter. Shui Changkong and the others seem to be doing something to this sword. Only when they achieve their goal will the Calamity Clan dare to invade us. Or perhaps the 2,000 years that Senior mentioned in the past is not just referring to my remaining lifespan but also some kind of deduction related to this sword. Ning Fan let out a long sigh when he thought of this. There were too many questions in his mind. Unfortunately, there was no longer any Sha Di who could answer them for him. The specific details of the invasion of the Calamity Clan and the existence of the Sacred Desolate Heavenly Slaughter Sword were unknown even to the great elders like the Nether Sea Immortal King. Perhaps, Sha Di's original intention was to wait for Ning Fan to grow to a certain extent before telling him everything. Unfortunately, there was no one who could answer Ning Fan's doubts. Young Lord, the Slaughter Palace cannot be without a leader for a single day. The 7th generation has passed away. It's time for you to take over the position of the 8th generation and take charge of the overall situation. In the past, you needed to hide behind others because you have yet to mature. Now, you are already invincible below the immortal Emperor realm. I'm afraid you can even put up a fight against a 6th tribulation immortal Emperor. There is nothing wrong with taking over the position of the 8th generation Shadi. No one would dare to disobey you. Behind him, the Nether Sea Immortal King knelt on the ground. As a dignified quasi-emperor, he would not kneel to anyone. Only the substitute Shadi was worthy of such a grand gesture from him. In his heart, he had already treated Ning Fan as the next Shadi. Let's bury the 7th generation first. Ning Fan sighed and helped Ming Hai up. The reason why an expert like Ming Hai knelt to him was because of his recognition and respect towards his identity as a young emperor. It was also out of his loyalty to the Slaughter Palace. Similarly, he would not let an existence like Ming Hai kneel to him casually out of respect. In fact, Ning Fan did not have a strong sense of belonging to the Slaughter Palace. After all, he was different from Ming Hai, who was an old man who was loyal to the Slaughter Palace. His actions were just to fulfill a promise he had made in the past. That was all. What about after that? After that, we will keep the news of the 7th generation's death a secret. Many people already know about this. I'm afraid we won't be able to keep it a secret. Ming Hai said awkwardly. We just need to order our disciples to keep their mouths shut. It doesn't matter even if this matter spreads out in the end. I just don't want too many people to know that Shadi was murdered by a traitor. His illustrious reputation will be ruined. I know what you're worried about. You should know about the hostility of the Calamity clan towards the Slaughter Palace, right? I know a little about it. However, I didn't know that the secret clan that was plotting against the Slaughter Palace was actually the Calamity clan. This time, I've finally figured it out. Ming Hai said with embarrassment. Even the Calamity clan did not annihilate the Slaughter Palace immediately after the death of the 7th generation. It must be because they have some scruples. Which other immortal emperors would dare to do something that even the Calamity clan doesn't dare to do? I'm guessing that the Calamity clan is not the only force that is plotting against the sacred heavenly sword in the eastern heaven and the 4 heavens. The Slaughter Palace is still here now. It will still exist for a long time in the future. They will only act when they think that the time is right. The sacred heavenly sword. Young lord, are you referring to the ancient sword that was sealed in the blood prison? Is this sword really that powerful? It can even make the secret clan wary of it. I didn't know about this before. Ming Hai was shocked. I'm just guessing. Everything is just a guess, young lord. Aren't you going to inherit the position of the 8th generation Shadi immediately? You should know that there are great benefits for anyone who succeeds the position of Shadi. Oh. It's my first time hearing that there are benefits to succeeding the position of Shadi. Can Great Elder tell me more about it? Ning Fan's original intention was to hide the news of Shadi's death and then pretend to leave the Slaughter Palace. Due to some kind of fear, even the powerful Calamity clan would not dare to act against the Slaughter Palace for the time being. However, one day, those people would definitely make their move. In order to have enough strength to protect the Slaughter Palace before that day arrives, Ning Fan could not possibly stay and guard the Slaughter Palace. He must leave this place. He must seek for opportunities to continuously improve his cultivation base and obtain a powerful cultivation base that would allow him to fight against the secret clan. In order to fulfill the promise he made in the past, Ning Fan was willing to bear the responsibility of protecting the Slaughter Palace. As for the empty title of Shadi, he was very indifferent to it. If he was still very weak, perhaps he would value the position of Shadi. After all, as Shadi, he could mobilize all the forces of the Slaughter Palace to protect him. However, does the current him really need the subordinates of the Slaughter Palace to protect him? There's no need. There's no need for that anymore. Moreover, in Ning Fan's eyes, there was no difference between the title of the 8th generation Killing Emperor and the title of the 8th generation Young Emperor of the Slaughter Palace. Neither of them could scare a true expert. If the difference was not big, what was the point of succession? In any case, whether he succeeded or not, he would protect the slaughter hall and fulfill his promise. However, if there are other benefits to inheriting the position of Shadi, then Ning Fan would have to think carefully about whether or not he should inherit the position. As for the specifics, it would depend on whether the benefits of succeeding as the Slayer could move him. Otherwise, he would not bother to do so. Ming Hai took out an ancient jade slip and handed it to Ning Fan respectfully. This jade scroll had been passed down from generation to generation by the great elders. 47 generations of great elders had passed down to Ming Hai. The lifespan of the great elders was far less than that of the Shadi. Naturally, there were many more generations. Ning Fan's spirit sense went into the jade slip. At first, he was calm, but soon, he was surprised. Inheriting the title of Shadi is actually beneficial to the improvement of my strength. In that case, I can directly inherit the title of the 8th Shadi. What's the harm? The look in Ning Fan's eyes gradually turned resolute. The past cannot be remonstrated and the future can still be pursued. It was meaningless to keep lamenting the tragedy of the 7th generation. It was time for him to fulfill his promise and repay the 7th generation. If that's the case, I will now give the order to arrange young Lord's Emperor conferring ceremony. From today onwards, the millions of cultivators of the Slaughter Hall and the Northern Dipper Blood World will be loyal to young Lord. We will take the responsibility of protecting the Blood World and the Slaughter Hall. I am willing to make a Tao oath to show my loyalty. As long as young Lord does not betray the Slaughter Hall in this life, Ming Hai, am willing to go through fire and water for young Lord for generations. Go through fire and water for generations for me? Hee. There's no need for that. You just need to wholeheartedly protect the Slaughter Hall and never change your mind. That will be enough. Ning Fan smiled. Ming Hai bowed deeply and lowered his head. His eyes were filled with reminiscence. He remembered the Tao oath that he made in that year and that month, which was almost the same as today. That year, he was still young. He was just a young mortal who wholeheartedly sought to become an immortal. On a certain cultivation planet, he met the 7th Shadi by chance. Taoist priest. Please accept me as your disciple. I also want to cultivate the Tao. I want to be an immortal who can live for 100 years. I'm not a Taoist priest. What I seek is not the Tao. Besides, I don't accept disciples. The 7th Shadi replied in a somewhat speechless manner. Taoist priest, you're really heartless. How about this? As long as you accept me as your disciple and bring me to seek immortality, I, your little disciple, Hai Ming, am willing to go through fire and water for you for 10 generations. How about this? Go through fire and water? Hee. Interesting. However, I don't need you to go through fire and water for me. Of course, if you can really fulfill your promise, it's not impossible for me to give you an immortal fate. However, I still won't accept you as my disciple. The Slaughter Hall is very strict when it comes to accepting disciples. You must personally come to the Slaughter Planet and stand out in the trial. Only then will you be qualified to become a disciple of the Slaughter Hall. Amidst the gratified laughter, the 7th Shadi left on a long rainbow, leaving the young Ming Hai alone to stare at the vast sky in envy. At that time, he still did not know what the Slaughter Hall was. Back then, he didn't know how vast the world of immortals was. He stared at the sky in a daze. It was a long time after the 7th Slaying Emperor had left that he regained his senses. When he regained his senses, he discovered that a book had appeared on the ground in front of him. A very ordinary cultivation technique that recorded all kinds of methods for mortals to open their meridians. A bottle of very ordinary elixirs that could help cultivators open their meridians. The overjoyed youngster, Ming Hai, excitedly found a deserted place and began to consume elixirs to cultivate. After that, he stepped into the cultivation world and fought his way through. Step by step, he broke through the void and flew away from this cultivation planet. Step by step, he reached the second step of the life immortal realm. He swept through his peers and joined the slaughter hall as an outsider. Step by step, he became an elder of the slaughter hall. Step by step, he became the grand elder of the slaughter hall. Step by step, he gained the resounding reputation of the white-haired immortal king. My disciple, Hai Ming, is willing to go through fire and water for you for generations to come. I, Ming Hai, am willing to go through fire and water for young master. It had never changed. You. Chapter 1094. Before Ning Fan, every Sha Di had a title that was based on the Big Dipper. The first generation of the Slayer Emperor's titles were, Greedy Wolf, the second generation, Giant Gate, the third generation, Luxuan, the fourth generation, Wenxiu, the fifth generation, Lianjin, the sixth generation, Wuxiu, and the seventh generation, Vanquisher. Ning Fan searched the memories of Xue Chongkong and the others and saw the scenes of the seventh generation patriarch's death. In his scattered memories, he vaguely saw the Big Dipper blood boundary and the army destroyer Starry Sky. In the image, the seventh Slayer Emperor's deathly aura was getting heavier by the day. He had already sealed the Big Dipper blood boundary and guarded it alone. In the image, the Big Dipper blood world no longer allowed outsiders to enter. Only Deputy Hall Master Xue Chongkong, who had received special permission from the seventh generation, could bring people to enter at a specific time to give the seventh generation the natural treasures gathered by the experts of the first hall. On the screen, the seventh Slayer Emperor smiled as he gave Xue Chongkong some instructions. Xue Chongkong answered all of them respectfully. In the image, Xue Chongkong offered a poisonous pill for the seventh generation to consume. This was a secret medicine of the Calamity race. Even someone as powerful as the seventh generation would not be able to detect any hidden dangers if he did not check it repeatedly. The seventh generation king treated Xue Chongkong like his own son and did not doubt him at all. Seeing that the pill was indeed beneficial to his body, he consumed the Calamity clan's poison pill. Then, the poison took effect and his cultivation base was reduced to less than 100%. His body was on the verge of death, and his cultivation was sealed. Naturally, it was difficult for him to resist Xue Chongkong and the others' plot, but he still fought until the last moment. I've never had a son in my life, and I've always regarded you as the most important. Why are you doing this? Why, so, you're a member of the Calamity clan. So, you're here to carry out a mission. Our standpoints are different. I can forgive you for your betrayal, but I cannot tolerate you harming the descendants of the Big Dipper Alliance. This is my home. It was also the home of countless Big Dipper descendants. This Big Dipper blood boundary is protected by the sword intent of the sacred slaughtering heavenly sword. It's easy for you to kill me, but it's extremely difficult to kill these descendants of the Big Dipper. The will of the Big Dipper will be passed down from generation to generation. Believe me, your Calamity race will not be able to slaughter all of my Big Dipper descendants. Do you know that there was once a boy who promised me that he would take over my will and protect the Big Dipper blood boundary for me? I trust him. He will definitely come. I gave him a jade slip to protect himself that day. Now, it seems that the jade slip is no longer useful. Fine, since the jade slip is useless, I'll exchange it for some treasures and give it to him. You can't have the treasure I left for him. Before he died, he still firmly believed that Ning Fan would fulfill his promise and come to replace his will. I trust him. He will come. It was just a simple sentence, but it caused ripples in Ning Fan's heart that could not be erased for a long time. As for the treasure that Sha Di said was left behind, Ning Fan could not find it in the Broken Army Star Palace after searching for it. Thus, he had no choice but to give up. If he couldn't find it, then so be it. He actually didn't lack treasures. The grave of the seventh-generation patriarch was built in the Broken Army Star Palace by Ning Fan. He sewed his head back to his physical body and placed it into the coffin. What was placed into the coffin together with the seventh-generation patriarch was Ning Fan's jade slip, which he did not use up in the end. There was no grand funeral. Only a few of the slaughter hall's elders attended the simple funeral. The millions of descendants of the Northern Dipper blood world did not know that the seventh-generation patriarch had passed away. They were protected by the sacred slaughtering heavenly desolate sword intent. Thus, the rebellion this time did not affect them at all. In front of the grave, Ning Fan personally sacrificed the traitors to comfort the heroic soul of the seventh-generation patriarch. After that, he dismissed all the elders of the slaughter hall and stood alone in the dilapidated Broken Army Star Palace. He looked at the land below the Star Palace, the city walls and the countless descendants of the Northern Dipper blood world. Ning Fan recalled the time when he pursued the Tao in the Northern Dipper blood world. He also had some feelings for the Northern Dipper blood world. However, those feelings were obviously not as deep as the feelings he had for the past generations of Sha Di. After all, he was not a true member of the slaughter hall. He did not have the nostalgia that the seventh-generation patriarch had for his homeland. However, he would certainly do what he had promised. Since the seventh-generation patriarch was dead, from now on, Ning Fan would be the guardian of the Northern Dipper blood world. Great young Emperor Ning, I'm sorry for your loss. Yao Qinyan's comforting voice suddenly resounded behind him. She held Ning Fan's hand tightly. Her beautiful eyes were filled with worry. She was very worried that Ning Fan would feel sad because of Sha Di's death. Ning Fan was surprised. He shook his head and smiled gently. My condolences. No need. To cultivators, life and death were something that couldn't be more common. Among all the outstanding cultivators since ancient times, how many of them could truly live forever? Mortals had a limited lifespan. Immortals had a limited number of heavenly tribulations. As for immortal cultivators, they had to face countless life and death crises. If one is afraid of death, there was no point in cultivating the Tao anymore. What Ning Fan was concerned about was not the death of Sha Di. Even if he prolonged Sha Di's life, it would only allow him to live for a few more days. In the end, he would still die. What he regretted was that Sha Di's death was too painful. He was an old man with one foot in the grave, but he was betrayed by the person he regarded as his own son. How miserable must it be when he was on the verge of death. You didn't leave with the other elders. I'm a little worried. Worried about me? Don't worry. I'm not that sad. My friendship with the seventh-generation patriarch is actually not that deep. The only thing that kept us together was gratitude and a promise. That's why I'm feeling a little emotional. Traitors are really scary things. Ning Fan said with a smile and stroked Yao Qinyan's black hair. His mind, however, was thinking about Yin Mo's betrayal of the Purple Do Immortal Domain, which indirectly led to the destruction of the Purple Do Immortal Domain. Yao Qinyan blushed. After making sure that no one was around, she allowed Ning Fan to continue stroking her hair. She raised her head and met Ning Fan's eyes, which were as dark as the abyss. Somehow, she recalled the crazy scenes that happened in the cave of the Six Desires Immortal King in the past. At that time, Ning Fan's eyes were just as deep and serene. Thus, her face became even redder. For some reason, she whispered to Ning Fan. Little fellow, I won't betray you. Of course, I know that you won't betray me. Your body has always been honest. Then, great young Emperor Ning, do you want to come to my immortal cave and have a look at my honest body? Yao Qinyan rolled her eyes at Ning Fan angrily. She was talking about something serious, but Ning Fan interrupted her. Speaking of which, she still blamed Ning Fan for making their relationship known to the public. Now that this matter has been spread, how was she going to raise her head in front of the other elders in the future? Now, the entire slaughter palace was talking about how she, an elder Nashi shedding void realm expert, had once forced herself on Ning Fan, who had a low cultivation base at that time. She was really shameless and had no shame at all. Let's see how this despicable rumor has spread to the entire slaughter palace. However, she couldn't be blamed for that. Back then, her cultivation base was far higher than Ning Fan's. Of course, no one would believe that she was the one who was forced on by him. Who would have thought that when the aphrodisiac poison acted up, she was in a daze and spouted nonsense, allowing Ning Fan to do whatever he wanted to her. In the end, Ning Fan forced himself on her. She was the victim, all right. Now, when she invited Ning Fan to her cave, all she said were ironic words. She had already made up her mind that she would not have sex with Ning Fan for the time being. As for the long term. In any case, she did not want others to make groundless accusations and spread more rumors about her in the short term. All right. Recently, everything has been going against me and I'm feeling a little frustrated. I need a good release. Later, I will go to your cave to find you. Ning Fan gave Yao Qingyun a deep look and said with a smile. Are you really going to come? Cough cough. This isn't good. It's really not good. We have to pay attention to our image. Yao Qingyun said seriously. During this special period, we indeed have to pay attention to our image. Ning Fan nodded his head as if he agreed with Yao Qingyun's point of view. This made Yao Qingyun let out a sigh of relief. At the same time, she also felt a little disappointed. Thinking about it, it made sense. The 7th generation had fallen and the 8th generation had inherited the throne. There were still many things that Ning Fan needed to deal with. Of course, he did not have the time to fool around with me. He was just joking and he would not really come. It's fine if he doesn't come. Ning Fan had risen to power in the Eastern Heaven. He was no longer a weak and insignificant life immortal realm cultivator in the past. When she saw Ning Fan again, Yao Qingyun actually felt a little complicated inside. She was a little nervous, worried about her gains and losses and felt a little inferior. In short, she still did not know how she should face Ning Fan in the future. Should she still maintain a physical relationship with Ning Fan? How should she address Ning Fan? Actually, she preferred to call Ning Fan little fellow. However, be it Ning Fan's position in the palace or his cultivation base, she could no longer call him that casually anymore. In the past, she was Shikong, an elder, while Ning Fan was a life immortal realm cultivator and a disciple. Today, she was still Shikong and an elder, while Ning Fan was an ancient monster, a young emperor and the future 8th killing emperor. Moreover, the thought-breaking old monster, immortal venerables and immortal kings whom she had to look up to were just like dust in Ning Fan's eyes. Perhaps, she and Ning Fan were already people from two different worlds. It was better for her to keep a certain distance from him. Thus, Yao Qingyun left with a little disappointment. She swore that she had never been so sentimental in her life before. Unfortunately, that night, all the disappointment in her heart turned into shame and anger. This is her immortal cave, isn't it? This is her imperial concubine bed, isn't it? Who could tell her that she was just half leaning on the imperial concubine bed and Ning Fan was already on top of her and stripping her clothes? Young Emperor, what are you doing? Stop. It's not good. Not here. Don't touch me. Don't worry. Your maidservants and the guards of the immortal cave are all under my illusion technique. No one will know about what happened tonight and no rumors will be spread. Ning Fan spoke with a tone that said, I've made thorough arrangements. You can rest assured, and began to delve deeper into Yao Qingyun. Yao Qingyun was so embarrassed that she wanted to hide her face. She had seen shameless people before, but she had never seen someone as shameless as Ning Fan. What happened to being mindful of my influence? What happened to keeping a distance from me temporarily? Ning Fan didn't say anything about keeping a distance from me. Her mind was still trying to think of something else, but it was quickly turned blank by the tide-like impact. She wanted to scold him, but when the words came to her mouth, they turned into soft moans. Bullshit, young emperor. This little fellow is still as shameless and powerful as before. Ah. It's too deep. Very good. Really good. You're the one who wanted to seduce me. Since you've entered my body, you better not regret it. Yao Qingyun turned around and pressed Ning Fan down. She played with the hair on her temples and sneered. Little fellow, if I don't squeeze you dry today, I will write my name Yao backwards. Ning Fan smiled with satisfaction. This was the Yao Qingyun he knew. The one from before was too unfamiliar, too reserved. It was a crazy night. The second night was still crazy. On the third night, Yao Qingyun lost the battle due to exhaustion. Ning Fan, on the other hand, walked out of the cave in high spirits. He called for Yao Qingyun's maidservant to serve her and left with a smile. After a bout of madness, Ning Fan vented out all the negative emotions in his heart. His mood became much better. Looking at the Dark Race, the Calamity Race, the Slaughter Palace and the Ancient Chaos Great Emperor, Ning Fan could already face them calmly without any worries or fear. Life is long, there is no need to worry too much, just live happily. Blade lights and sword shadows, seas of blood and mountains of corpses, all of these were just ordinary meals that could be cooked in one pot. Old Wu and the other servants were waiting outside Yao Qingyun's immortal cave. When they saw that Ning Fan was finally done, all of them were shocked. For 3 whole days, Master had been working, he was really persistent. What did it mean to be a real man of iron blood? This was it. Master is very capable. For 3 days in a row, Mistress Yao must be very satisfied. Admirable. Since ancient times, Little 8 would only listen to Master. In this situation, Little 8 wanted to recite a poem. How does an ancient poem go? There is a little green in the midst of thousands of flowers, Master's head is green. No, not this one. Old Wu was so anxious that he said the wrong thing. Stupid tortoise. That's called walking through thousands of flowers without a single leaf touching you. Uncultured people are really scary. Zhu Er was too lazy to care about Old Wu. He turned his back to Old Wu and farted to humiliate him. Wu Laoba immediately exploded and wrestled with Zhu Er. Crow Heavenly Dog howled and joined the battle. Sometimes, he helped Old Wu bite Zhu Er and sometimes, he helped Zhu Er bite Old Wu. Ning Fan shook his head and ignored the 3 idiots. He went to find the immortal king of Nethersea alone. He did not know what he talked about with Nethersea, but someone brought him to the blood prison of the Slaughter Palace. At the bottom of the blood prison, there was an ancient sealing sword called the Sacred Heavenly Desolate Sword. Ning Fan dismissed everyone and entered the blood prison alone. In the past, his cultivation base was still weak and he needed to wear an innate ghost mask to enter the depths of the blood prison. But now, he did not need to do so. He could enter the 7th level of the blood prison with his own strength. The 7th level was shrouded in intense blood light. The blood light was filled with an unimaginably powerful baleful qi. Ning Fan had killed immortal emperors along the way, but he still felt a chill down his spine when facing the baleful qi here. No wonder it was said that even immortal emperors would find it hard to enter the 7th level of the blood prison. At least, Ning Fan did not dare to enter without the protection of the God-exterminating shield. Vaguely, he could feel the existence of an extremely sharp sword intent in the boundless blood light of the 7th level. The moment he stepped into this place, the sword intent locked onto him, as if it would kill him if he made any strange movements. Unfortunately, Ning Fan still could not see the shadow of the sealing sword in the blood light. In the past, he did not see it with his own eyes. He only heard about it from the 5 sword spirit girls. You are the young emperor chosen by the 7th generation. You are here again. In the boundless blood light, there was a voice talking to Ning Fan. This was the voice that Ning Fan could only hear after he used his all things communication ability. He could not hear it in the past and neither could the others. I am here again. The 8th generation young emperor of the Slaughter Palace, Ning Fan, greets Senior. Ning Fan cupped his fists towards the boundless blood light and chose to address the sealing sword as Senior. You can actually hear my voice. I see. You are a crippled divine spirit. The voice sounded surprised. Without waiting for Ning Fan to speak, the voice continued. Are you here to inherit the position of the 8th generation? Yes. Ning Fan answered. Every generation of young emperors would need to obtain the acknowledgement of the ancient sealing sword. That was why Ning Fan came here. Of course, the other young emperors could not communicate with the ancient sealing sword directly. They needed to burn incense and pray for the sword's acknowledgement. Ning Fan did not need to do that. He could talk to it directly. The voice asked again. I'm ready. As soon as Ning Fan finished speaking, he sat cross-legged on the ground. His eyes shone with bright green light and his black hair fluttered without any wind. It's actually the second level of the heavenly being realm. The 7th generation has really found an incredible monster. If it's you, you might be able to obtain enlightenment that is different from the other killing emperors from my lifetime's enlightenment. Thump thump. Thump thump. Thump thump. Suddenly, there was a strange heartbeat in the 7th level of the blood prison. The heartbeat reverberated across heaven and earth. It was very similar to the heartbeat caused by the ancient Chaos Great Emperor that day, but there were also some differences. There was not only one heartbeat in the 7th level of the blood prison, but dozens of them. Under the control of the ancient sealing sword, the heartbeats did not spread out of the blood prison. They only reverberated in the 7th level of the blood prison. Only Ning Fan could hear the sound of those heartbeats. Only Ning Fan could sense how terrifying those heartbeats were. These dozens of heartbeats were all saint-level heartbeats that only a 7 orifices ancient god could possess. The vast ancient god aura reverberated in this place, causing Ning Fan's heart to beat uncontrollably. The frequency of his heartbeat was assimilated by the other party's heartbeats in an instant. The Big Dipper dust tribulation. The remnant soldiers turned into emperors. The sacred slaughterer Tian Huang gave birth to the idea of seizing the heavens. The immortal sovereign's 3,000 immortal seals comprehended the first 7 seals. He refined the heavens into a palm and turned the palm into a seal. He defeated the purple immortal realm and defeated the North Emperor. He was no match for Mo Zhong. He gave up the idea of seizing the heavens and set up the palace for slaughter. He commanded the galaxy to guard the blood descendants' world. My name is Sacred Slaughterer Tian Huang. No one after the 2nd generation knows my name. No one knows that I have another identity other than being a sword. I am the first killing emperor. I've watched the battle where you defended the Slaughter Temple. You are not bad. I rarely trust the descendants of Purple Dipper immortal cultivators. You are one of the rare exceptions. The 43 heartbeats that you heard are the heartbeats of the saints that I collected from the battlefield of Heaven Wasteland. Each heartbeat contains the insights of the saints. Each generation of killing emperor can only choose one of them to comprehend. Otherwise, his Tao will collapse. The 7th generation comprehended the path to becoming a lord. The 6th generation comprehended the immortal spirit martial technique. The 5th generation comprehended the beast-controlling immortal art. The 4th generation comprehended the secret of the divine movement. The 3rd generation comprehended the ultimate technique of the immortal fire sect. The 2nd generation comprehended the profound principles of space and time. I am looking forward to what you will comprehend. The ancient sealing sword did not speak to Ning Fan anymore. Even if it did, Ning Fan would not have the mood to listen to it. At this moment, all he could hear were the heartbeats of the saints. Each time a heartbeat entered his ears, bloody scenes would appear in front of him. In those scenes, saints were fighting on the battlefield one after another until they died in battle. Ning Fan tried his best to maintain the calmness in his heart. At this moment, the heartbeats of the saints that entered his ears were complicated and messy. However, any heartbeat would bring great benefits to him. One of the benefits of succeeding the position of killing emperor was to obtain the ancient sealing sword as a reward. By listening to the heartbeat of a saint, one would be able to gain great enlightenment from it. If it wasn't for the benefits of succeeding the position of killing emperor, Ning Fan would certainly not go through these formalities. He would also not covet the title of the 8th killing emperor. Dong dong. The heartbeat of a saint entered Ning Fan's ears. Then, a scene appeared in his mind. It was a scene of a saint stepping on an aurora and flying in the sky. That scene seemed to be an extremely profound escape technique of the 3rd step. Dong dong. Before Ning Fan could see the escape technique clearly, another heartbeat squeezed into his ears, causing another scene to appear in his mind. In the scene, a saint flicked a speck of dust and crushed an ancient great cultivator to death. That scene was indescribably breathtaking. Dong dong. The scene changed again. It was a scene of a saint exhaling a mouthful of green qi and forming 3 undying and indestructible clones. Dong dong. The scene kept changing. Each of the scenes contained indescribable mysteriousness. However, it was difficult to see each scene completely. Just as one could see a part of it, it would be interrupted by other scenes. Ning Fan somewhat understood why each of the young emperors could only choose one heartbeat to listen to. If they choose more than one heartbeat, the different scenes would switch back and forth, making it impossible for them to see everything and comprehend it perfectly. The jade slip that Ming Hai gave me mentioned that if I choose one heartbeat, I can mark it and perform a technique to ask the sacred slaughtering heavenly desolate sword to erase the other heartbeats. Only then can I focus on listening to the only heartbeat that I chose. Each of the heartbeats contains supreme enlightenment. Any one of them can improve my strength. However, there's something that I don't understand. The heartbeats that I heard were obviously 47. Why did the sacred slaughtering heavenly desolate sword tell me that it was 43? There are 4 extra heartbeats. Did I hear it wrongly, or is there another reason? Chapter 1095. Ning Fan did not ask what the 4 extra heartbeats were because he faintly felt that the sacred slaughter heavenly desolate sword would not answer him even if he asked. He didn't ask any more questions. He just tried his best to calm down his turbulent heart. Previously, his heart had been unsettled to a certain extent. The reason for that was partly due to the shock of suddenly hearing the saint's heartbeat, and partly due to the surprise of knowing the other identity of the saintly slaughtering heavenly sword. The other identity of the saintly slaughtering heavenly sword was actually the slayer of the 1st generation. The first slayer wasn't human. A sword? Ning Fan also wanted to ask about this matter before, but he did not say it out loud. He knew what his priorities were. Now, his priority was to empty his mind and let his body and mind become one. This was to avoid wasting the one and only opportunity for every young emperor to become a sacred listening saint. There are 3 benefits to succeeding the young emperors as the slayer. Listening to the sage's heartbeat is the first benefit. Due to certain restrictions, each person can only experience it once in their lifetime. Before Sha Di becomes a martial emperor, he would come here to listen to the heartbeat of a saint and gain enlightenment from it. Which saint's heartbeat should I choose to listen to? Ning Fan forgot everything around him and cast away all distracting thoughts. Gradually, his aura began to appear and disappear. Gradually, his aura completely disappeared from the world. Although he was still sitting cross-legged on the ground, his entire being seemed to have become a part of heaven and earth. Or perhaps, heaven and earth had become a part of his body, unity of heaven and man, the 2nd realm. What kind of terrifying concentration is this? This lad seems to have noticed the problem of the heartbeat. This is something that none of the previous Sha emperors could do. As expected of a cultivator at the second realm of the heaven realm. As expected of a hero with 2 heaven-grade Tao images, the sacred slaughtering heavenly desolate sword made a sound again. This time, it was surprised. Unfortunately, Ning Fan could no longer hear it. There was nothing in his heart, and his 6 senses were untainted. At this moment, even if someone were to slash at Ning Fan with a blade, Ning Fan would remain unmoved. Dong dong. Thump thump. Dong dong. The heartbeat reverberating in his ears was getting more and more violent and clear. Images of the saints flashed across Ning Fan's mind. The profound principles they contained were presented to him one after another. In front of these complicated heartbeats of the saints, Ning Fan felt insignificant. He felt that his bone age of more than 100,000 years seemed long, but in fact, it was very short. He felt that the hardships and bitterness he had experienced along the way were just the ripples on the surface of a calm lake. At this moment, his peaceful heart was actually the vast lake water at the bottom of the lake. Even though the scenes in his mind were still changing rapidly, the speed of the changes had slowed down due to the calmness in his heart. As the scenes changed, the length of the image that could be seen gradually lengthened. Ask me what I mean, perching on the jade mountain, smiling but not answering, my heart is at ease, the peach blossoms and flowing water vanish, there is another heaven and earth, not the human world. In the image, a sage in a woven rush cape was in the peach blossom spring, giving a lecture to the 100,000 disciples. With a lift of his hand, he twirled a peach blossom petal. With a single thought, he actually opened up a world within a mere peach blossom petal. There were trillions of living beings within the petal world. There were so many living beings, but they didn't feel that the petal world was narrow. Instead, they still couldn't find the edge of the petal world. These living beings also didn't know that the world they lived in was actually just a petal that the sage casually picked up. The sage in the woven rush cape wore an indifferent expression. He crushed the petal in his hand into powder and destroyed it along with the trillions of living beings in the petal world. All of them died. When he opened up the world and created trillions of living beings, he didn't feel any joy. When he destroyed the world and killed trillions of living beings, he also didn't feel any pity. In his eyes, all mortal beings were just illusions. The voices of the 100,000 disciples were like a tidal wave. The sage in the woven rush cape closed his eyes and didn't explain anything to them. After an unknown period of time, the sage in the woven rush cape opened his eyes. As if he had sensed something, he frowned. He gave a few instructions to his disciples and then leaped into the sky, leaving the peach blossom spring. He flew to the peak of the world that was filled with peach trees. He lifted his hand and tore open the world of the peach blossom spring. Then, he walked out of it. Countless disciples heard his movements and stood up to send him off respectfully. In the outside world, a ray of light flew out from a drop of peach blossom dew and landed on the ground, turning into the sage in the woven rush cape. He turned his head to look at the dew and shook his head. Your filial piety is commendable. However, you aren't human. You can't see the true face of Mount Lu. The so-called world of the peach blossom spring was actually just a drop of dew in the outer world. As for the 100,000 disciples who sent him off respectfully just now, if one were to take a closer look, they would find that they were bacteria that were slightly larger in size in that drop of dew. As for the weaker and more subtle things, they couldn't be seen clearly from the outside world, let alone appear in the dew. They could only be seen by entering the world. The war in the ancient realm of heavenly desolate has intensified. This time, even I have to get involved. The sage in the woven rush cape shook his head and soared into the sky. At that moment, the scene changed. Even though it was still the same scene, there was already much more content than before. Ning Fan's heart skipped a beat. The trillions of living beings in the petal, the creation and destruction of the petal world, the peach blossom spring where the 100,000 disciples resided was actually just a drop of dew. Humans were like mayflies. There was a world within a world. Everything seemed to have opened the door to a new world for him. It made him feel like he understood something, but at the same time, it felt like he understood nothing at all. In the next scene, there was an armored sage plucking stars and refining magic treasures. The refinement technique of that sage was so exquisite that it had already exceeded Ning Fan's understanding. It was definitely not something that the common knowledge of the second step could understand. When that sage was halfway through refining his magic treasure, he suddenly frowned and muttered to himself. Heavenly desolate, then, he directly kept the magic treasure that he was halfway through refining and left in a hurry. The scene changed again. There was a sage who destroyed tens of thousands of worlds with a single sword strike. That sword technique was so profound. If Ning Fan could master it, he would definitely be undefeatable in the age of chaos. The scene changed again. It was the scene of two sages fighting barehanded. The body techniques they used were all things that surpassed the second step, a heartbeat, a scene and a kind of enlightenment. The first 43 heartbeats were all the same without any exception. In the enlightenment of these 43 heartbeats, Ning Fan could even see a sage who used killing to prove his Tao. Each and every move of that sage contained the profound principles of the Tao of killing. If he could comprehend it, he would be able to comprehend the palm realm of killing step by step. From the palm realm to the Tao origin, or even to a higher level. There was a sage who reared spiritual insects of the third step. There was a sage who opened a forum and gave a lecture. There was also a sage who molded soil to create humans. However, when the 44th heartbeat appeared, all the 43 scenes that were flashing in Ning Fan's mind became calm. From the 44th heartbeat onward, the subsequent heartbeats seemed to be vastly different from the previous ones. He could not see any profound principles or enlightenment from them. It was as if those insights were not on the surface but were hidden deep inside. In this scene, there was only a mortal old man who lifted his head and looked at the night sky. He stared at the 7 stars of the Big Dipper in the night sky as if he was looking at the stars but also at himself. He seemed to be thinking about something but he could not get an answer. Thus, his brows were tightly knitted together. Both of his eyes were bright silver. That silver color was the color of the stars that he was born with. He looked at the sky with his silver eyes and remained silent. He did not move at all. Even his expression did not change. If it wasn't for the plants in the painting that could move and the stars in the night sky that could flash, Ning Fan would almost think that this mortal old man was standing in a still and unmoving painting. There were even natural birds that built their nests on the silver-eyed old man's shoulder. They actually treated this living person as a tree. The plants under the silver-eyed old man's feet had just broken through the soil. It seemed to be spring in the surroundings, immortal. No, it can't be. This 44th heartbeat is undoubtedly the heartbeat of a saint. This old man may look like a mortal but he is undoubtedly a saint. Raising my head to look at the Big Dipper seems to be looking at myself. This scene does give me a sense of déjà vu, but it seems to be different from what I've comprehended before. Today people fish, tomorrow the heavens fish me. Ning Fan closed his eyes tightly and frowned slightly. Just as he was about to carefully comprehend this scene, the scene changed again. He could not continue to study it in depth. The 45th heartbeat entered his ears without permission. In the 45th scene, a middle-aged man was looking at the starry sky of the Big Dipper. That middle-aged man also had a pair of silver eyes. His appearance was extremely similar to the silver-eyed old man in the 44th scene. It was just like the appearance of the silver-eyed old man when he was younger. However, it was not just his appearance that was younger. Ning Fan felt that his cultivation base was slightly weaker than the silver-eyed old man. The silver-eyed middle-aged man also raised his head to look at the sky. His frown was even deeper than the silver-eyed old man's. When he looked at the Big Dipper in the night sky, it felt like he was also looking at himself. However, it also felt like he was not the only person he was looking at. On his shoulder, there was a bird's nest that had been built for an entire spring. The plants under his feet had already grown to his knees. It was already summer. The silver-eyed middle-aged man in this scene and the silver-eyed old man in the previous scene should be the same person. What's strange is that judging from the sequence of time, the 45th scene should be after the 44th scene. However, this silver-eyed saint seems to be getting younger and younger. This scene seems to contain some insights that I can't reach. Soon, the 46th heartbeat forcibly entered the scene. In the 46th scene, the moon was round in the autumn night. However, a silver-eyed young man was not looking at the moon. Instead, he was looking at the 7 stars of the Big Dipper. The bird's nest on his shoulder had already been emptied. The surrounding plants began to wither and turn yellow. Fallen leaves covered the ground. Time passed from summer to autumn. This silver-eyed saint seemed to have become younger and his cultivation base had also weakened significantly. He remained silent until the 47th scene began. He still didn't speak. The 47th scene was in the middle of winter. It was a snowy night. Heavy snow swirled in the air. A silver-eyed young man stood in the snow without moving a single step. He looked at the 7 stars of the Big Dipper in the snow and suddenly coughed out a mouthful of blood. Then, he sighed. Sigh. This path really can't be taken. Everyone says that the 4th step immortal emperor is the Saint Defier, but where did the word defy come from and where did it end? I don't know if there's a 5th step immortal emperor in this world, but even if there is, I don't dare to take this path. In the snow and wind, the silver-eyed young man's appearance gradually changed. His cultivation base continued to rise. Gradually, the young man turned back into a silver-eyed young man, a silver-eyed middle-aged man, and finally a silver-eyed old man. When his white hair reached the ground, his skin and flesh shriveled, and all his teeth fell out, an extremely powerful aura of the 4th step immortal emperor burst out from his body. At this moment, midwinter began to move backward. It returned to late autumn, midsummer, and then early spring. He made a grabbing motion with his big hand. Then, he raised his hand and summoned a sect from another heaven and earth. Then, he placed it on the ground. Did the immortal emperor succeed? A few personal attendants with the cultivation base of a saint walked out from the sect and came to the silver-eyed old man. They asked respectfully. The silver-eyed old man just shook his head silently. The immortal emperor. The last 4 heartbeats were actually not the heartbeats of an ordinary saint. Instead, they were the heartbeats of a 4th step Saint Defier. Ning Fan was secretly shocked. Could this immortal emperor who was watching the Big Dipper at night be the ancestor of the descendants of the Big Dipper, the immortal emperor? Could this heartbeat be the heartbeat of the immortal emperor of the Big Dipper? However, why would the heartbeat of the same immortal emperor produce 4 completely different sounds? According to Ning Fan's observation, the last 4 heartbeats had a lot of similarities but there were even more differences. They did not sound like the heartbeats of the same person. Instead, they sounded more like the heartbeats of 4 different people. What exactly is the immortal emperor of the Big Dipper comprehending? What is the path that he is unable to walk that he mentioned? I don't understand. I don't understand. The more Ning Fan wanted to think about it, the more he could not understand it. His head felt like it was about to split open. His blood felt like it was burning and the Tao laws in his body felt like they were collapsing. He knew that he was probably coveting something that he should not covet. He gritted his teeth and cut off his greed. He calmed his mind and threw the last 4 heartbeats to the back of his mind. In this way, the pain also disappeared. His intuition told him that the Tao comprehension contained in the last 4 heartbeats belonged to a 4th step immortal emperor. Thus, its value was naturally far greater than the previous 43 heartbeats. However, his rationality told him that the last 4 heartbeats were not something that he could obtain. At most, he could only benefit from the previous heartbeats. All of a sudden, Ning Fan felt a little dispirited. He began to examine himself. He realized that even if he could benefit from the previous heartbeats, the benefits were just temporary. He had learned countless absolute arts in his life. Any one of them could make him invincible against ordinary cultivators at the same level as him. He did not lack any divine abilities. He also did not lack cultivation methods to reach the peak of the cultivation-ending era. If he continues on his current path, Ning Fan was confident that he could reach the peak of the illusionary world in the cultivation-ending era step by step. Then, he would advance towards the legendary Saint Realm. If he succeeds, he would be invincible under the heavens. Even if he fails to become a Saint Realm expert, he would at least become a strengthened version of Great Emperor Ancient Chaos. He could still sweep across the illusionary world and protect the things that he wants to protect. Great Emperor Ancient Chaos had not become a Saint Realm expert, but he had killed a Saint Realm expert before. How valiant was that? Ning Fan had one more Jia Shui than Ancient Chaos. Thus, his achievements in the future would certainly be higher than Ancient Chaos. Even if he stops at the Saint Realm, he would still be able to become a legend. As for becoming the ruler of the three great true worlds, that doesn't seem to be important. Ning Fan's original intention of cultivating the Tao was not to become the strongest in the world. Right from the beginning, his motive was different from most cultivators. As long as he could wipe out all his enemies in the illusionary world and protect his loved ones, becoming a Saint Realm expert or reaching the fourth step was just the icing on the cake. It was dispensable. His vision was actually very narrow. It was enough for him to guard the small area in front of him. However, when he thought about it that way, he felt a little lost. The more he cultivated the Tao, the more he could not find his own path. It was because the path would always extend forward. However, he did not have the desire to keep advancing. He just wanted to guard his back. The human's energy is limited after all. I have learned a lot of peerless absolute arts. However, the 5 yin-yang swords of Great Emperor Ancient Chaos is already not inferior to the absolute arts of a third-step Saint Realm expert. There are many other things that are at the same level. However, because I have learned too many things, I didn't have the time to study many of them. This time, when I listened to the Saint Heart, it was supposed to be a chance for me to obtain another absolute art to establish myself. However, after watching the Big Dipper Immortal Sovereign comprehending the Tao, I felt even more insignificant than before. Thus, I decided not to do so anymore. Perhaps, my path doesn't always point forward. Perhaps, it's enough for my path to end at this point. I don't need to pursue the length of the path. I can just stop and widen the width of the path. I am willing to stop on this path of cultivation for the things that I care about. Or perhaps, this kind of stopping halfway is the path that belongs to me. Ning Fan's heart suddenly thumped. It was as if he had only recognized himself at this moment. It was as if he could hear his own heartbeat and his own inner voice. Yes, he was a person who was content with a small fortune. He was a person who was easily satisfied. If there was no external pressure, he would not be willing to pursue those illusory cultivation bases, fame and fortune, if he could wipe out all his enemies in the illusionary world, if he no longer had the need to increase his cultivation base and if he encountered a cultivation realm that required him to risk his life to advance, he would certainly choose to give up. This is my heart. I disdain going forward all the way. However, if I really decide to stop here, then this place will be my country. No one can invade the place where my sword reaches. Thump thump. Thump thump. Thump thump. The sound of heartbeats reverberated from Ning Fan's body. In terms of aura force, this heartbeat was far less powerful than the heartbeat of a third-step saint. However, it was much more steady and resonant than the heartbeat of any other saint. At this moment, Ning Fan's heartbeat might still have some doubts. However, the last trace of confusion he had about cultivating the third and fourth step had been completely swept away. Because he could let go of his delusional thoughts, he could persist in his heart. In Ning Fan's opinion, the superficial fame, superficial benefits and immortality that others valued greatly were actually just an illusion. This young man has actually managed to understand the Saint Heart in the second step. How is this possible? It's already commendable that he could hear the heartbeat of the Big Dipper sovereign. However, that was only because of the help of the second step heaven realm. Any cultivator at the second step heaven realm would probably be able to hear the heartbeat of the Big Dipper sovereign. However, to understand the saint heart, even among the true saints, there are very few who can do it. Even if there are some who can do it, all of them are desolate saints who are the strongest among the saints. Even the weakest incipient saint is an outstanding individual who has attained the third step heaven realm. Obviously, the unity of heaven and man is not the reason to help this young man understand the saint heart. No. It can't be said that he has understood the saint heart. This young man is not a saint. What he is doing is actually to understand the saint heart. However, if he really becomes a saint one day, he can easily understand the saint heart even if he has just stepped into the incipient saint realm. The sacred slaughtering heavenly desolate sword could not hide the shock in its heart. If it wasn't for the fact that it had been dead for many years and only its will remained in the sword, it would certainly show its human form and touch Ning Fan's body to study why this young man was so outstanding. At this moment, it finally believed that it was not a coincidence that Ning Fan possessed the Tao image that surpassed immortal sovereign Beidou. The Tao image was the manifestation of the Tao. The Tao that this young man has chosen is probably one of the most heaven-defying ones among the Tao guardians. If this Tao is fortunate enough to become a Tao path one day, this young man will probably become another immortal sovereign Zido who is at the same level as him. I'm afraid that even immortal sovereign Zido himself did not expect that such a descendant of Zido would actually be born in the illusory dream world which is similar to a mass grave. What a pity. No matter how great this young man's innate potential is, he won't be able to ascend to the top of the mass grave. He was born in the wrong era. If he was born in the era when immortal sovereign Zido was still alive, his future would be limitless. Even if he doesn't enter the fourth step, he would still have a peerless future. My ability isn't enough to help him return to his true yang state from death. However, even if this young man can only step into the illusory dream world for the rest of his life, I'm still willing to help him consolidate the saint heart that he has just comprehended. This young man seems to look down on the heartbeat of these saints. Speaking of which, this young man is coincidentally an ancient god. If that's the case, I'll use the power of these ancient god hearts to help him open his ancient god heart aperture. The benefits of succeeding Sha Di in the past have never gone to waste. I can't let this young man return empty-handed. Even if he doesn't have the chance to listen to the saint heart in the future, it doesn't matter anymore. Whether this young man can become strong enough to fight against the Calamity Clan or not is the key to the continuation of the Slaughter Palace. Qie blood-red sword intent suddenly spread across the seventh level of the blood prison, engulfing Ning Fan in an instant. At this moment, Ning Fan's heartbeat was calming down bit by bit. He no longer paid attention to the heartbeats of the other saints. Just as he was about to stop his comprehension, he suddenly sensed the overwhelming sword intent rushing towards him. He immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. This sword intent was too terrifying. It was enough to kill him hundreds or thousands of times. This was the sword intent of the sacred slaughter heavenly desolate sword. If it has any malicious intent, he would certainly die. Fortunately, Ning Fan firmly believed that the sacred slaughter heavenly desolate sword would not harm him. Since he was powerless to resist it, he remained calm and let the overwhelming sword intent approach him. As expected, when the sword intent arrived behind him, it did not cause any harm to Ning Fan at all. It just drilled into his body and pierced his heart. Ning Fan felt a piercing pain in his heart but he did not do anything to stop it. It was because, he could feel the tremendous benefits brought by the sword intent piercing his heart. This sacred slaughter heavenly desolate sword had actually dissolved the power of the saint's heartbeat to help him open his ancient divine heart aperture. 8th generation, since you are unwilling to listen to the heartbeat of the saints, I will give you benefits in a more direct way. In the past, I did not collect much heart force of the saints. Since the previous killing emperors listened to the heartbeat of the saints, a lot of it was consumed. The remaining heart force is more or less enough for you to open your fourth and fifth heart apertures. As for the other heart apertures, you will need to find other opportunities to open them. It was the first time the sacred slaughter heavenly desolate sword addressed Ning Fan in such a formal manner. The eighth generation. This was not only a form of acknowledgement but also a form of respect for Ning Fan, treating him as an equal. At this moment it was not talking to Ning Fan as the sacred slaughter heavenly desolate sword. Instead, it was giving a junior benefits with the identity of the first killing emperor. Speaking of which, the seventh generation left something for you. He sent it to me through a secret method and it was not taken away by those traitors. When a sovereign emperor dies, there is a certain chance for him to give birth to a sovereign emperor's Tao fruit. The seventh generation died an unfortunate death. Perhaps the heavens have compensated him for that, allowing his sovereign throne of slaughter to be passed down. Next, not only will I help you open your heart aperture, but I will also help you absorb the power of this sovereign throne of slaughter. Of course, you won't be able to directly condense the void of the sovereign throne. However, it is also a matter of course for your cultivation of the Tao of slaughter to improve greatly. My slaughter palace is a sect of 7 generations of killing emperors. No matter what our relationship was before we became emperors, be it father or son or master and disciple, we will all address each other as senior and junior brothers after we become emperors. You are the 8th generation and the same goes for you. From now on, you can call me the first killing emperor or you can also call me senior brother. You can also call me the sacred slaughter heavenly desolate sword, the ancient sealing sword. It's up to you. As for our master, we don't have a master. We only have a common belief that has been passed down from generation to generation. That belief is to protect the descendants of the Big Dipper immortal domain. What we are protecting is not the Big Dipper immortal sovereign but the Big Dipper blood world. It is our home. It is the homeland that belongs to the cultivators of the Slaughter Palace and the last descendants of the Big Dipper blood world. Of course, the one who wants to hear you call him senior brother the most as the 8th generation is actually the 7th generation. Unfortunately, you won't have the chance anymore. Ning Fan's eyes were not filled with joy when he obtained the power of the sovereign rank of slaughter. Instead, his eyes turned gloomy and his heart ached. The 7th generation died a sad and humiliating death. However, before he died, he actually kept the Tao fruit of the sovereign rank of slaughter for him. What kind of virtue and ability did he have to receive so many favors from the 7th generation? I believe him. He will definitely return. None of you will be able to obtain the treasure that I left for him. Ning Fan clenched his fists and closed his eyes, hiding all of his emotions in the bottom of his heart. When he opened his eyes again, he was already calm and determined. The heart aperture was opened bit by bit, the ardent primordial art was secretly activated in his body. The power of the sovereign rank of Tao fruit was easily condensed into the highest grade heaven grade Tao crystal by Ning Fan. Suddenly, he pointed at the sky and the Tao scripture appeared. His index finger drew in the air and wrote a new chapter on the Tao scripture. It was a chapter that belonged to the Slaughter Palace. It was written into the list of divine stars by Ning Fan. Because the power of the sovereign rank of slaughter that he received did not have the monstrous devil chi. There was only the concern of a senior towards a junior. There was only the lingering warmth left before death. It was not violent but warm. It was like a senior brother caring for his future junior brother, 7th generation, no. Senior. No. Senior brother. As long as Ning Fan is alive, I will not let the Slaughter Palace be destroyed in front of me. You have been carrying this burden for far too long. From now on, I will carry it for you, Ning Fan said in his heart. There was also a trace of complicated feelings flowing in his heart. In the past, he did not have a senior brother. Now, he has one, and these senior brothers had nothing to do with the masters that he acknowledged in his heart. It had nothing to do with his clan or the immortal domain. If the 7th generation was still alive, he would probably be very pleased to hear Ning Fan call him senior brother with his identity as the 8th generation. Unfortunately, as the sacred desolate sword had said, he no longer had the chance to do so. If there is another reincarnation, I will personally call you senior brother in front of you to make up for it. Ning Fan seemed to be talking to himself but also to the power of the sovereign rank of slaughter that was constantly surging into his body. Originally, there was a trace of negative emotion in the power of the sovereign rank of slaughter that was similar to regret. After Ning Fan said those words, it quietly disappeared. It was as if the last trace of regret of the 7th generation killing emperor had also been released. I believe in him. This young man will certainly guard the slaughter palace well. He will. Because he is the 8th generation young emperor that I personally chose. He is my junior brother that I personally chose. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.